meeting of the Finance Committee to order at 7:02 p.m. So as a preliminary matter, this is Jillian Prendergast. I am the chair of the Finance Committee. Please permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Nikhil?
Yes.
Sorry, right when you took a mouthful of food.
All good.
Nathan?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Nathaniel?
Yes.
And Peter sent me a message. He will not be able to make tonight. So, and we also have some invited staff tonight to help us support some of the articles. Greg, can you hear us okay today?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. And we also have Justin from the DPW to support us too. Can you hear us okay?
Everyone. Yes, good evening, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, I will go through the rest of the introduction here. So good evening. This is an open meeting of the Maynard Finance Committee. It is being conducted via Zoom. Speakers on the agenda will be participating remotely, and the chair may allow for the public to provide comments. The committee would like to hear public comments. This is not a public hearing, but if there is further action that is required by the board, the chair, we will add it as appropriate to a forthcoming agenda. Depending on the comment, we may, if able within the confines of the open meeting law, respond with information as opposed to needing to deliberate on the matter. Please note that while the option for remote attendance and our participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, this meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast to individual attendees unless otherwise required by law. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and also hear you, so please take care not to screen share your computer, and anything that you broadcast by sharing or turning on the video may be captured by this recording. All the meeting materials will be on Board Docs, and we recommend that you follow along on the agenda and the materials as posted on Board Docs unless I note otherwise. And we will now be turning to the first item on the agenda. Okay, so let's see. The first item on the agenda is the special town meeting articles. So, so we have tonight here, we have Justin, and we also have Greg to help us support so Greg has come to talk to us about article, I guess number 1 now. I can pull up the draft warrant. And we also have Justin's support to talk about the various water and sewer articles. Do you all have a preference which order you'd like to go in? You want to go first so you can peace out?
I would like to go first, Madam Chair, but also I'm playing a solo parenting right now, so the movie I just put on is only going to last so long. So I'd like to go.
All right.
Also, we didn't
So
discuss it with Justin, so I'm going to assume he's fine with me going first. Okay, he's giving me a thumbs up. Okay.
All right, and I'll also share here so you.
Not to
so you
dad,
won't
Greg. I
have to-
got you.
Yeah, so I did want to note to the committee, as we posted online and also sent an email around ahead of time, article number 1 that we voted on last time has slightly changed, although the theme is pretty much the same. So I will yield the floor to you, Greg, for this part.
Okay.
Is this the part you would like?
Yeah, that's perfect. So as you just said, Jillian, so the change is that big number, that $2.1 million. It's less $2.1 million. So my finance team, my town accountant and treasurer collector informed me, and I apologize for this confusion. It was after I'd already come to the finance committee that we needed to adjust our debt service amount. So when the town had appropriated the money for the bonding to pay for the new elementary school, we didn't know how much it was going to cost at the time. The bonding breakdown. And so to be on the safe side, we appropriated the amount of money it would cost for, not the state's portion, our portion of the bonds to pay for the school, which was significantly more than this. So we reduced that amount in this amount. So this is $2.1 million less. So the math works out. Yes, we are increasing some of the expenses because had more state revenue. And that breakdown's the same. What I already went over with the finance committee, for those various purposes, the personnel contracts, the down payment, so to speak, for the initial payment, if you will, for the leasing the fuel tank, and then the rest to the school department. And then, but so anyway, so this just means it's a more accurate budget for this fiscal year. And I say what I just said in a much better way in about 2 sentences in the comments.
Greg, I have a question. What happened to the 126,000? Because I would have expected the change to match the 2.1 million.
Okay, good question. So it's not exactly 2.1 million. I think if you do that math between 2.1 and I mean, unless I did my math wrong, but I had my finance team make sure that was right. But that should be the difference. So we're still going up, if you will, in some of the departments by $126,000 total, but we're reducing the overall appropriation, like how much we expect to collect in taxes, revenues, and otherwise. We're reducing that amount by 1.975. So that instead of reducing it by 2.1, we're reducing it by less than 2.1 because I'm getting revenue.
I did have a couple of questions for this one as well, just sort of in aid of like the recommendation that I'd written.
Okay.
So is the reduction in debt service then, is that like a direct result of the increase in state aid?
Nope, not related.
No.
Not related. I know this is
Okay.
confusing, and I appreciate this. So state aid is up. Like state aid went up. General state aid went up. So we were able to capture that and divvy it up to the expenses of the various departments. But we're not. But at the same time, separate from that $126,000, we're reducing the amount we need to pay off our debt services because we're not paying off the full scope of the debt that's going to be taken on. Let me think of it. This is probably an imprecise allusion, if you will, like anecdote. But when you take out a mortgage for your house, you don't pay off the entire mortgage. You pay it off year by year, right? So you don't pay off like the whole cost of the full house. You pay off year by year premium and interest. So instead of the full costs of the new elementary school, we're more precisely reflecting by this reduction by $2.1 million that this is the annual breakdown.
Okay, gotcha. I guess my follow-up question would be sort of directed to members of the committee as a whole, but especially I guess to those who maybe have sort of more experience than me writing these comments, which I guess is pretty much everyone. But would it be worth like sort of rewriting my recommendation to reflect like the reduced debt service, or not really, because it's like completely separate from the whole sort of local aid, which is kind of the focus of this? I don't know if anyone would want to speak to that.
I think that it is good to mention in our comments.
Okay.
And I have sort of a procedural question for Greg. If we've already voted on this and it was the old version, I think we would usually revisit it, right? Since it's been updated, and then re-vote on it again.
Yeah, absolutely. That is my expectation. And thank you for clarifying. You should re-vote tonight because you're voting on something different.
Also, procedurally, last time I was the one that put this up for a vote, and I very clearly stated that if Greg changes his mind, we were only voting for the first one. So this is now new, so we would have to, I would assume, procedurally, because it's barely as of how I phrased it.
Yep.
I'm not changing my mind after this. This is it. The select board has already seen these numbers. Oh, well, I never mind. I'm not saying that because anything could happen come town meeting on the floor. But as of tonight, this is it.
Greg, is that 2.1 million? Is that like for the Green Meadow Elementary School, like the amount that the state is matching
Yep.
for construction, or?
So no, thank you for clarifying. And I recognize now that I'm not doing a good job of saying this aloud. So it is a different, the 2.1 is our portion, right? So your taxes don't have to cover the state's portion of the contribution to pay for the school. So let's say the school costs, and it's something like $78 million total, the total cost of the project. The town is on for, I think it's 52 or $54 million worth of that amount, right? So the state covers the rest of it, which we don't worry about. And they have their own bonding scheme, right? They bond out huge amounts of capital. We don't worry about that. How they come up with their end of the money is up to them. How we come up with our 52 or $54 million, that's generally through taxes. And in this case, a debt exclusion to increase your taxes. And so what we need to do here is more precisely show what your taxes are going to capture each year, the appropriation that you need to pay for these debt every year. So we'd appropriated too much in May. So now we need to reduce how much we're actually required to take. So we're reducing it by $2.1 million to show what the actual amount we're gonna take in taxes.
So I guess all else being equal, should we expect that like next year our debt service is going to be like the same amount roughly if we don't take on new debt, or is that going to ramp up as construction starts?
Good. That's a good question. Generally, debt service is about stable. So unless you take on a new project, it doesn't generally go up. In fact, like it's not only just stable, but if you don't take on a new project, it kind of steadily goes down, right? Because you're paying off projects and you're paying off the bond. So when as you pay off the bond, even your interest goes down because your interest is a reflection of the size of the bond. So you pay it's like tiny amount that you pay off. Generally, your debt service is stable, and it only really significantly changes because you've paid off a project or you take on a new project. And generally you stay, every town is comfortable with a certain amount of debt. So you usually stay about where you're comfortable in. And I know the finance committee, you guys have talked this in the past where there's been like a certain amount of debt either way. So like, and as you guys often, I think you've thought of it as like a ratio of your general fund and your expenses overall. But this will kind of keep us in line with where it should be, this reduction in how much we're collecting.
Right. Yeah. Just because that's exactly what I'm trying to key in on. Because at the quad board meeting in June, I think it was the capital planning committee mentioned that like the good practice was to keep it under like 10% or so, and that we'd gone above that amount. And that's kind of a number that's been in my head this whole time. And that's a significant change in the amount of the budget allocated towards debt service in those terms. So
sure.
Am I understanding this correctly? That's like the new amount of the budget that's going to be appropriated for debt service, like going forward.
Yeah, going forward, right? Yeah, that's right. Barring any new capital, right? So on this later this evening, you're going to look at the debt exclusion, right? So for the bleachers, right? So if you were to add that, that's more debt. So we would be paying that down. But this doesn't assume that passage, right? So we would adjust it accordingly if need be to take on that debt. But these are two different articles, right? So we wouldn't adjust the budget, under any assumptions. Like we adjust the budget according to relative knowns, like how much we're taking on. So this does not reflect the alumni field potential project.
Yeah, just that's like 7% as opposed to 10 getting close to 11%. So that's
it's a big
difference.
You're right. It's huge difference, actually. Massive difference. Like the schools are obviously the biggest projects the town takes on by multitudes. Yeah.
So Greg, we've already borrowed the 54 million.
No. So you borrow, so you don't borrow 54 million in general. You borrow as much as you need according to a bonding scheme, which is, we come up with that strategy in collaboration with a bunch of perspectives, like the project manager, the designer, the contractor, the bond counsel, so like our lawyers that help us do this, and most importantly, the bank. So who we actually take the bonds out for, right? So you wouldn't bond for that entirety. You would only bond according to what you need. because you don't pay for the full project until it really starts
Yeah.
rolling. And then you take out portions of bonds. A lot of it is also timing. Like you might just get a better rate and so you try to figure out how much to take out at a time that you need according to the rate you want. And if it's good rates, maybe take on a little bit more, but you also want to control how much you have to take in taxes. So this reflects all of that consideration, which all of that data is given to our bank, and they sort of like they help out how much that cost is going to be and how to pay it down. But we write checks according to the orders that we get from the contractor and the designer, and they say like, okay, so we've not done this amount of work, so we need to be paid for that. And then so we write those checks, but we take out the bonds to cover those costs.
So if we haven't borrowed the whole amount, why wouldn't we expect the debt service as we keep adding to our principal to keep going up until we finish the project?
Because this
interest rate go up? I mean, the interest payments go up as we borrow more.
If we were to borrow, right, so this captures this difference between what we took in May and then what this less $2.1 million captures what the costs are going forward. So like it's a balance between debt and interest. And so that our debt services pays for both the debt, the premium and the interest. And so that might fluctuate a little bit, but as you pay off your premium every year, like you pay off the size, you're paying off your interest is a proportion of the total amount you're bonding for. So if you're paying that
Let's
off,
say now we've only borrowed 10 million, and then as the project goes, like next year, maybe 20 million up till 50 million.
Oh no, it won't go up. So what we did is we know that the cost of to the town for the school is, I think it's $54 million. I apologize if that's inaccurate, but I think it's about that. So if, let's say we know it's about $54 million, and the powers that be, all those people who I just said, they've built many schools before and they understand the market very well. So they know what the breakdown would be annually that you need to pay off $54 million worth, right? So you can break that down into an annual bit. And again, I think it's a 30-year bond. So how much would that be over 30 years? And then that gives you an amount you need to appropriate for each year. And so that's what you appropriate in the general fund, is how much you're going to take in taxes each year.
And has this reduction, when we get our November tax bills, will this be in it, or the number we saw last week, do you think?
No, you're going to start paying for the elementary school in January.
In January, not November. Okay.
No,
Okay.
November.
So November will still be estimated. Is it? I don't know, but
no, I think it'll still be, wait, no, I'm pretty sure. I can't speak to the November bill, what that's going to reflect, but I'm fairly certain January is when your elementary school, it's when this is going to hit.
okay, thank you.
So we're going to, so let me just kind of further explain just the budget cycle. So we traditionally, I think with very few exceptions, we traditionally do amend the budget in the fall, like in October. And we specifically do it in the first half of October, just like this town meeting, because how much is to be collected in taxes is the information that the Board of Assessors needs to know, because the Board of Assessors says, okay, so here's the value of all the properties in town, and we need to collect X amount of money for the general fund. So here's how much everybody has to pay, and here's the tax rate. And then that gets a recommendation, because the Board of Assessors says they recommend a tax rate and they recommend a ratio between commercial and residential properties and personal properties. So that all gets analyzed by the Board of Assessors. And then they have what's called a tax classification hearing with the select board that sets the tax rate. And therefore your bills go out so that come January 1st, it's reflecting this new general fund appropriation. But we just the other day started the project, really. I mean, like we just moved into the construction phase of the new elementary school. So we wouldn't start paying off the bonds until work started, and it just started. I think like last weekend, or even maybe over the weekend, we just started clearing trees. So you wouldn't start paying for anything until work starts, and then you have to pay off the bonds.
I'm not sure if this would be an appropriate time to do this, but just in terms of getting like an accurate sort of revised comment for this article, I was thinking that I could simply add just words to the effect of completely separate from like the local aid increase. There was also a large reduction in the town's debt service to more accurately reflect the future debt expenses required for Green Meadows school construction, if that would be sort of appropriate.
I've kind of been spitballing it as we've been talking, so.
Oh, sorry, what would you say, Jillian?
I've been adding to the comments that you sent for this
Okay.
article,
Gotcha.
as we've been talking, so I
Okay,
figured
okay,
that's
so, yeah,
something we could
I see
probably
that.
go over. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
but I didn't want to get too fixated on the comments until we have all of our questions answered
Certainly.
and vote on it to recommend or not recommend.
If there aren't any
Uh,
other questions, I'd move to approve. A move to recommend this article as amended.
Second.
All right, so we have an approval and a second. Do we have any further questions or discussions? All right, I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see people. So I don't hear any further questions or discussions. So this is to recommend article number 1 on the general fund budget. So I'll take a roll call vote. Nikhil,
Yes.
Nathan,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Nathaniel.
Yes.
I am also a yes. So that is a recommend.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'll put back up the comments here. So, so I will delete your name here. So basically I say I added a couple sentences here saying it's typical to amend it to reflect more financial forecasting. And then I added a sentence in here about it'll decrease the debt service. And then this is, I didn't change the part that you wrote, talking about the updates.
Would we want to add like a the before or an and or a the before updated funding scheme? Maybe? Sort of at on the third line.
That one? You always gotta double check my English. Doing English good. We can also come back to the comments at the end. So, but I sort of wanted to bring it up just in case you have any lingering questions for Greg, so he can go take care of the kids.
Procedurally, do we also motion to approve our comments here, or is once we've done the, I guess I don't know what the next step is for this. We just move on to the next article?
I don't think we have to necessarily vote on the comments.
Okay, good. Extra time right there.
So I think it's more of sort of bringing it up and then we talk about it as a group. And if there's any English or other corrections or people feel strongly about a sentence, then we talk about it as a group.
I think we should come back to all the comments at the end, though.
Yeah. Okay. So, but there's no sort of lingering questions for our comments for Greg. I'm not hearing any. Oh, all right. So I am, I'm going to move forward and I would motion that we would move on to Justin. So thanks, Greg, for your support for article number 1. Much appreciated. So I'll pull up the article here for you, Justin. Let's see which one is starting at number 4. And thanks for sending us all of the background information as well. So if that's if that's something the committee or you would like to look over. I can also pull that up too.
Jillian, are you referring to the enterprise fund?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to start with the enterprise fund since that's new and the committee hasn't seen
You
that
have
at
not
all.
entered any numbers. Please re-enter the meeting password followed by pound.
So I would just leave that up to you, Madam Chair. Whatever you want to start with is fine with me. I'm ready to speak for everything. So.
Okay. I as one member might say that talking about that article might be good, since we haven't seen it at all. But if we think it's easier, yeah, so I would recommend we start there to try to be able to make comments on all of them, because it's 7:30, so we're making good time. We'll see how the time goes.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll just get started with this control and article. If you're unaware, the select board engaged a task force made up of 5 members of the community, including myself, to review and update and modify our solid waste and recycling program model, which looked at it very holistically, top down, finances to program adoption, operational processes, services, whether we're going to enhance our services, meet our services, or reduce our services, really a large holistic overview of our overall program. During our process, we've met over 26 times. We've presented to the select board twice now. We are zeroing in on our final recommendation, but as you can imagine, this is a program service that is, if you're unaware, this is the second largest service contract for the town of Maynard. It is one that encompasses and affects almost every single resident within the town of Maynard. So we looked at this and dove in very deep, which is taking time. During that process, we have come to the conclusion collectively that we need to be able to enhance and utilize a financial mechanism referred to as enterprise funding accounts within a municipal government that allows for services such as water, sewer, solid waste, stormwater to adapt, modify, and react financially in a timely, efficient manner to the commodity markets that we deal with. Solid waste is a commodity market. It is typically referred to as a utility. We are working on archaic financial structures to adapt to an ever-changing environment within the solid waste industry. I don't know how much the entire committee knows about solid waste in Massachusetts, but it is a very volatile market that's due to many aspects that the town of Maynard does not control. It's a national global volatility. We are subject to cost triggers such as tipping and tonnage fees that affect our rates. So as a committee, we have decided collectively that the best way for the town of Maynard to not only deal with the current situation of our program, but to have a forefront forecasting model to handle some of that flexibility and fluctuation within the market. It allows adopting the enterprise fund will allow the town to proactively get in front of extreme rate changes so that we can address those in advance. The purpose for this enterprise fund is really to meet those goals. Any questions, concerns?
Justin, do you have any idea what this is going to look like? Is it going to be a cart program or is it going to be a pay-as-you-throw program? Do you know what you think is going to work?
Yeah, so Linda, I will say at this point in time, collectively, we have what I like to say the core foundation of the program, which would be a cart style program, but it would follow pay-as-you-throw models. The financial structure that we're looking at would reduce or eliminate the sticker program, would move to a quarterly billing program with the ability to buy excess baggage. So what pre-identified bags, very similar to your sticker program for overflow. So those would be, vision in place of stickers at Buds or at Market Basket, you would have trash bags. But those who choose the service initially will all have carts at a billing price tier of X. And then we have built-in flexibility to try to capture all of the needs of our customers. So as you can imagine, there's some customers that may need less than weekly service, while others may need more than an enhanced cart sizing. So multiple different cart sizes, things like that. So we looked at this holistically. In essence of efficiency and effectiveness, our cart model is one cart, but you have the ability to purchase second or third carts at higher tier markets, and you have the ability to take in a cart and have it bi-weekly at a lower commodity. So think of the way that I tier our water and sewer pricing. So we look, our lower users are incentivized to conserve water. The same approach would be taken with our cart program.
So there'd be an incentive to have less trash.
That is correct. And that
Okay.
actually helps reduce the volatility. So again,
Yeah.
the service itself will come at a contract cost that is pretty much locked in stone based on the terms. It's the commodity marking, the tipping fees, that is based on the tonnage that our current customer base uses. We have a lot of inefficiency in our current system, and it is hemorrhaging town taxpayer funding out the door because we don't have the ability to audit it enough. Our program is ripe for abuse. Our current program is ripe for abuse. So we looked at this holistically and really came up with what I think is a very solid approach to reduce a lot of that.
And then it would transfer, as you just mentioned, it would free up money that's currently in the operating budget.
Give me 1 second, Jillian. So that PowerPoint presentation I just noticed, sorry, Linda, but that PowerPoint presentation you brought up was the historic documentation PowerPoint.
This is the old one? Okay.
Yes. So the
That's
new
right.
one roughly has our model, but as we've paused the select board, we are still in final development of that model. We are confident in giving a general overview of what that looks like, to Linda's point. But if the finance committee really wants to do some of their due diligence on what we're in the essence of doing, our newest PowerPoint kind of gives that general overview. Sorry, Linda, continue with
No,
your.
that's okay. But it would have an impact on our sort of general operating budget because it would take that money and make it available for either reducing taxes or something else.
Potentially. So so back to the enterprise fund, one of our policy recommendations, as you can see, this is actually a great slide to keep up right now, Jillian. Oh, sorry. Yep. So as you can see, there is a distribution of collected revenue, i.e. stickers, and general fund taxation. It's roughly 54-45. Our recommendation to the board in adopting the enterprise fund with our first fiscal year, which will most likely be FY26 of adoption as long as everything works out, we would look to keep the 54-45 split. So our price points, Linda, for our cart pricing, our revenue funds would be in that 54 to 55. We would most likely make it a very, very easy metric. So it would be 55%. And then we'd be looking for a general taxation of 45. At that point, our task force will try to provide a 5-year look forward, but we will then eventually be dissolved. And it will be up to the select board to look at whether it's the select board, sub-finance, finance committee, and a collective approach, how you want to change that policy of moving that 55-45 metric, which can absolutely be done. It's just one of those situations where the task force will give a look forward, but we have a centralized process here, and programmatic approach is our main goal.
And is the idea that by switching to all carts, you'd be able to negotiate a better contract with E.L. Harvey or whoever else might be providing these services for pickup?
So Nathan, I'm going to make this very clear like we did with the select board, and we will with town meeting. No matter what we do, whether we adopt a new program, don't do anything, adopt this enterprise or nothing, moving forward, the prices will absolutely go up. So no matter what we do, the next contract, if we do nothing, the prices will absolutely go up. What we're looking to kind of curve here, Nathan, is we have two contracts. We have a hauling contract, which is the truck driver picking up your curbside collection. Then it goes to a central facility somewhere else and is disposed of, which is referred to as Wheelabrator. That contract is a separate contract, and we pay a commodity market of how many tons we produce. Our current program is driving that cost up because there's extreme inefficiencies in abuse. We are looking to curb that commodity with a controlled mechanism, i.e., these are controlled cart sizes. So right now we have bag abuse, we have non-sticker abuse, we don't have auditing services, we have very limited resources to move that forward. We will see a cost increase no matter what we do, but we're looking to curb the long-term commodity cost market and that volatility and flexibility in our current program.
So if there's widespread abuse that's leading us to have, you know, what was it, 45% of the overall budget is paid for by stickers, and some people aren't buying them or whatever. Why are you pegging that as the goal for how much is going to be funded by the enterprise fund versus like a general budget?
So Nathan, the original program was always designed to have general fund allocation support it. So in the essence of what our task force is really tasked with, it's mainly the programmatic efficient approach to our future operation. When we come at, you know, if the program is adopted, the work is not done. At that point, there's a bigger collective conversation of redistribution of general fund allocation versus revenue collected allocation. I believe that is out of the purview of the task force. I believe that is more appropriate in the sub-finance committee realm, within the stakeholders of major boards that look at our general fund budget holistically. Because at that time, as I described to many stakeholders, that is the time where we can have these modification conversations, because we can adopt annual pricing models to capture revenue if there was a shift from general fund allocation. So the stakeholders have a big debt service in front of you. Maybe it's the bleachers. And we do the math backwards and we realize, okay, well, if we go up on the sticker prices as opposed to real estate tax, we could free up general fund allocation of X. And maybe that's the approach. But I think, again, for the task force approach, the enterprise fund, the funding mechanism allows for that fluidity to happen on the fly, which then allows the authorities to make those decisions. And what we're really looking to do is to reduce the current abuse metric that's happening and reduce the overall long-term cost metrics that are applying pressure to our system.
I have a question about, once this is established, who decides what it looks like? Is this going to be run by the select board like the water and sewer is?
So you mean the enterprise fund, Jillian?
Yes.
Yes. So just so you know, I wasn't sure if it was the program model, because the program model actually has to be adopted by the Board of Health and then the select board, meaning the actualities.
Okay.
But when you're talking about the enterprise fund, yes, they are the CEOs. They are tasked with rate development and rate adoption. Just be aware that currently right now, they also have that authority to raise stickers anytime they want if there's a recommendation process. But very similar to the way that the water and sewer enterprise fund is run, this would fall in that very similar category. So you would have retained earnings potentially, depending on if it eventually became self-funded. The vision here, like anything else, the reason that the state allows for utilities like water, sewer, solid waste, and stormwater is because they're a volatile utility, and general government processes aren't keeping up with that matrix. And that's been common knowledge for almost a decade. The town of Maynard, with the recent state federal policies, we're having trouble keeping up with that. It's time to modify and enhance an official financial metric, which is what we're looking to do. But checks and balances will always be there, i.e. exactly how they are with the enterprise fund for water and sewer. So there's public hearings for rate increases, just like there is water and sewer. There is FinCom approval of reserve funds if we build that into it. Again, the task force model has general fund allocation, so you'll never have an overage of money. So a lot of the things that you're seeing with our water and sewer won't come into play until eventually the program would be shift to full allocation of receipts. Currently, right now, what it does is run the program almost exactly how you see it now, but instead of stickers being a conversation every 5 years that end up being 100% increase, we'd be looking at small incremental increases that are flowing, that allow our stakeholders to plan their own personal finances in the future with a methodical, progressive approach.
Okay.
So to your point, town meeting currently doesn't have the authority to change the stickers anyways. So this really is just adopting the allowable financial metric that allows for more transparency and fluid modifications.
And this would be an option to establish the fund, or once this is voted in, it would be an obligation to establish the fund.
You nailed it, Jillian. It is an option. We do need town meeting adoption vote, but like anything, to Greg's conversation earlier, we asked for X amount of money for the school, but we may actually use less. The same metric applies here. We're asking for adoption from our legislative body, but ultimately at the end of the day, when the task force pitches the entirety of the program, the select board could choose not to adopt enterprise fund. We're just like negotiating in contracts that are up to 7-year terms over 3 year, the allowable. That doesn't mean the select board has to do it, but we do need town meeting approval. And part of that conversation that we had with the select board was, why now? Well, we only have 2 shots at this before the end of our contract. And when I say 2 shots, if we vote this in an annual town meeting, that really gives us a very small window to adopt a new program, change our financial metrics in the time that our current contract ends, which is June 30th, 2025. This allows for the town to effectively position ourselves for the right approach.
You said that was June 2025?
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. So adoption of this article would allow flexibility for this to be an option in the process of establishing that new waste contract. Without it, you would have to go with some kind of similar sticker or some other program.
It limits what the task force is capable of providing with our 100% program model. It does limit process. It limits the 5-year projected model that we want to put in place for the select board. It really reduces what we as a task force will be able to kind of adopt as a program model. And we're looking to make sure that we have a full 50,000-foot view, holistically looking at this, not just from a curbside collection program, but from a sustainable solid waste and recycling program that is holistic throughout the community. Whether it's centralized refuge for certain parts, we're really looking at this from a very high level. This allows us to come up with a very concise and advantageous program.
Okay.
I like this a lot. But I'm wondering if you have like a presentation planned for the special town meeting to educate the public.
So Nathan, yeah. So the PowerPoint you see in front of you, which actually we're always looking for feedback. So I don't expect you guys to digest this PowerPoint in like 2 minutes and then push out a bunch of comments. But just know each one of you can either go through Jillian and send me comments or questions. And that's up to Jillian, or you can reach me direct as long as Jillian's okay with it. We're looking for feedback on how we present this, but just know that the current presentation was to select board. We're going to actually shrink this. Select board is really our program approach because we're under their task force authority. But we're really looking at just educating the sheer fact to the enterprise fund adoption more than targeting the program model, because the program model is not absolute at this point.
So this could be a silly question, but kind of, I guess, just to confirm, is it basically the case that sort of having the enterprise fund is like a prerequisite for being able to successfully implement like the proposed program model? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's the best way to say it. It allows us complete flexibility to adopt a program model that is the best and most advantageous for the town of Maynard with all of our research that we've done.
And ultimately, would that decision be something that the select board is able to do on its own, or would that be subject to like a vote at like the next annual town meeting or something to adopt like a new program?
So Nathan, this would be the only time town meeting really has a say, like an authority. But as we discussed with the select board, with our recommendation, and this was a recommendation and a conversation between our task force and the select board, with our recommendation of a program model adoption, we thought it'd be very prudent to have one, maybe two open meetings, so public meetings that are put out there through newspaper where there is comments, concerns, and integration from public before final adoption, very similar to how we do our water and sewer rates. If you're unaware, we make a recommendation. My department makes a recommendation to the select board. It's in a public meeting. They never vote on it first time. Then we take in any comments, concerns we have. If there's adjustments that need to be made, or just thought process that wasn't necessarily absolute, it may be considered, and then we can modify it before we go forward. That's our approach with this. And then again, that's a process that once the enterprise fund, if it gets adopted, that's how an annual rate process would happen. So there is opportunity for input from the public. It will just come in the form of a select board meeting versus a town meeting. And Nathan, I'm not sure if I know that you're someone new, I want to say a year or two now. I feel like I've dealt with you a year or two now in your time. Did you see our survey?
Yes.
Was the entire committee privy to our survey? Okay. So in the town of Maynard, since I've been here over 6 years now, that survey had the most respondents that any survey that we've ever done. We had a significant amount of feedback very early with large scale comments. I mean, it is very robust. It actually took us, I would say, maybe 10 of our 27 meetings were just the survey alone and digesting that. We look to put in some of the survey processes within our presentation to the town meeting voters so that they understand that they were part of this process from the beginning. We took that to heart. There was a lot of comments. There was some eye openers for some of the task force, and we really focused on a lot of the needs. But we also are focusing on some of the wants and how we incorporate those.
All right. Sorry, I'm like triple double muted here. I'm lost in my sharing screen. All right. So this would give us an option, but not an obligation. It would establish the enterprise fund, but it would not dictate what this program would entail. That would be up to the select board if this article passes to establish the program via a select board public hearing where they would like set rates and other things.
Jillian, that's 100% correct, but I want to add a little caveat. Whether this gets adopted or not by town meeting, the select board will always have the authority to change and modify the program. So I don't want it tied to the enterprise fund article. It is very sensitive that we do not tie the two together. There is advantageous approach for the task force and the program model if it had the enterprise fund adopted. But at the end of the day, town meeting does not have the authority now and will not have the authority to adopt program models. But we are using this time for feedback. So as you know, I mean, Jillian, you've gone to many town meetings. There will be comments and we will take in that feedback, which will help us wrap in our 100% recommendation of our model change. And that's actually what we're hoping to accomplish with this article, that it teases out some of those comments for those who may not have participated in the survey or may feel like their voice isn't heard in some other criteria matrix, or they weren't able to go to a meeting. That's really where we're at right there with that. But we have to make sure that they're not mutually tied together. It's very, very important to us.
Okay.
Justin, could you clarify that? Just because it's very important to you, I want to make sure I understand like crystal clear, like how you putting like the best foot forward on like explaining this. My understanding is basically this is giving an additional toolkit to the select board, who is going to be making like the decisions, but this is not binding them to act in any one way or another, right?
Correct. They can choose never to adopt this enterprise fund. It's just there is multiple points of authority. An enterprise fund adoption starts with town meeting vote.
Okay. But the select board currently has the authority to set rates, in
Correct.
parentheses, with a public hearing, with the current sticker program, or with this potential new program. Not passing the article would not impact the select board ability to be able to change these rates via a public hearing.
You nailed it, Jillian.
Okay.
Jill, are you doing like draft comments right now?
Yes, I am. Okay. And then all of these documents, I don't know if they had a chance to make it on board docs. I got them to everyone a little late. My life's been a little bit hectic.
Jill, I can make sure after this meeting that they get uploaded.
Thank you so much. But they are also on the September 4th select board meeting currently online too. So they are online.
I would just encourage the committee to really look at the dates on every single one of them. This is really a timeline historical
Yep.
approach. So there's really 3 phases to that timeline. The initial onboarding when I started was a complete hemorrhaging of revenue, which was the immediate sticker change. Then there was a secondary approach to modify the program, which was never adopted. That created the task force, which is the final PowerPoint presentation that you see.
Yep, and there is also in here, when was this memo from? I don't think it's the summary of trash findings. I don't think that is dated.
So that's tied to the first memo, which would have been 2019. So it is a complete audit. It was performed by me personally in the field for a month straight to indicate what the failures of our current system was. And then the recommendation was made after that for the sticker increase based on the financials with an eye set on programmatic approach and change, but that was based off contract terms, which then was brought to the select board attention with the 2021 PowerPoint presentation, which at the time was not adopted. That led to the task force.
Yep. And I did appreciate, I remember talking about this back then where we were talking about what similar towns near us were paying per bag and things like that, and or per month. And so all of this is in that packet. So I appreciate the thoroughness of the
Yes.
whole committee.
And
or
just
task force.
yeah, and Jillian, as the finance committee keeps apprised to this, so again, if town meeting votes for the enterprise fund, there is a needs analysis that our task force has gone through. It is a very, very extensive Excel file that we're still working on, which will have extreme amount of data. for understanding of the focus. You know, in the past financials, we're going back 5 years the best we can with some inaccuracies in finance, because again, we don't have an enterprise fund, so it's very hard for financial analysis. But a 5 foot look ahead, I have a 5 year look ahead with all of the program approaches. That will be something that, you know, as when we make our final recommendation, I will send you a copy as the FinCom chair if you want to join a select board meeting as a joint thought process or just as public comment. So.
Okay. And that's why you were saying that this would be effective July 1st, because that's when the current contract runs out, 2025.
We have to make a choice one way or another by June. Well, obviously a little before June, but our current Holland contract expires June 30th. If we did nothing, we can make that determination a month before. But if we're going to adopt a new model, we really need 6 months plus. Timing is imperative if it allows flexibility for a lot of positions we may want to take moving forward with our program. So.
Got it. Does the committee have any questions? This article is not asking for an appropriation. It's just establishing the fund or the option for a fund, enterprise fund. All right.
Natasha, are you trying to
Not
talk? Oh, no, never mind.
Yeah, so I'm not hearing any questions from the committee. Would we like to vote on this, or would we like to go through all of the articles? We can vote on this at the end as a block.
I move to recommend Article 7.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Do we have any other questions, comments, or discussion on Article number 7? No? All right, I will take a roll call vote to recommend. Nathan?
Yes.
Nikhil?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Nathaniel?
Yes.
I am also a yes. All right, so, and we'll, I would recommend we come back to the comments at the end. So thanks for that part. I see a couple of the task force have also came too. So we did want to also thank you all for your hard work. We know it's been a process. So.
Thanks very much.
But yeah, thank you. We're gonna jump on to, so we have water retained earnings, sewer retained earnings, and we have an easement article, I believe, is the other topic. So I'll bring that up. New draft, I think it's this one.
All right.
I see. Katie sent me some here.
Okay, I can see it, Julian. I can speak to this one. So now you get to see how the logistics of enterprise funds actually work. So water and sewer, if you're unaware, we have 2 enterprise funds, one for our water utility and one for our sewer utility. Within those financial categories, each one has a financial metric that is referred to as retained earnings. It is equivalent to free cash. The difference is retained earnings cannot be utilized to offset general fund obligations. They are strictly to support the utility. So with that being said, we have a financial policy that we put in place over 6 years ago now, when we adopted annual rate increases, where we really, I like to say, we cleaned up the way we ran our enterprise funds to adapt to a yearly utility process. Within that, we have financial metrics that we try to reach. One of them is a cost barrier of retained earnings. Another one is reserve funds, and another one is stabilization funds. So about 6 years ago, our water and sewer utility was limping along financially. I want to say that we've made some significant strides, but I would not classify it as moderate or high level financial strides. I would say that we are out of the dumpster, but onto the parking lot. So with that being said, we have a very precise and methodical way that we move forward with our capital improvement plan. Our CIPs under our water and sewer are separate because the enterprise funds are separate as well. The town of Maynard does not have a great CIP process when it comes to equipment purchasing. If you're unaware, we have a fleet of over 50 vehicles within Public Works, Police, Fire. As you see annually, we replace on average 1, maybe 2 vehicles a year. That's not a high level fleet replacement program. So the beauty with our enterprise fund is under our water and sewer, we have a capital improvement plan that includes fleet replacement programs specifically to our water and sewer fleet equipment. This is the request to adopt and remove and reallocate an additional fund to design a vehicle that we recently secured funding for, which is a 6-wheel dump truck replacement, to adopt this piece of equipment to what is referred to as a hook lift system. It's a system that allows for one vehicle chassis to utilize multiple different style bodies. So it is an effective and efficient means to focus on specialized equipment without buying chassis identified for specialized equipment. The best way to describe it is one truck can potentially do 3, 5, 7, 10 different things, so that we're reducing overall cost of our fleet replacement program. Part of the reason we did this in 2 phases, so annual town meeting appropriated the funds for the truck chassis, was, if you're unaware, the market for fleet production is 6 months to 12 months out. So we needed to get in the pipeline of getting our truck built. With that being said, this is a contract that we adhere with a local firm that would, what we refer to in the industry as, upfit our piece of equipment. So we had time to allow for the funding to remain in retained earnings. That bought us some time in case there was the potential of a failure that may have caused us to go into retained earnings in FY24. We are very confident with reallocation of this fund for our FY24 because the books are finally closed. So we know exactly what our returned earnings are from our previous books, which was FY23. So if you follow the path here, is whatever we don't spend in FY23 becomes retained earnings in FY24, but we don't know what those retained earnings are until we're in FY25. So with that being said, we are very comfortable with our balance within our FY24 retained earnings, that we can move forward with this piece of equipment and this purchase, which allows one truck to become 2 instantly. And in the future, you may see different body types that are procured at a much lower cost than a new truck in the future to enhance our specialization replacement program.
Justin, do you know about what the balance is in the water retained earnings?
I believe I put it down in the comments.
Oh, and it's in the comments. Okay.
And I put it in my comment, Linda. When we pulled the comment I made, I did put that in our FinCom.
Okay, thank you.
It's about 1.7 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. After this allocation. Correct? I don't have the Excel sheet in front of me. I want to say I sent you the town accounts.
Yeah, I don't see it in what I have, but I might be looking at.
No, Jillian, did I send you the town accounts preliminary budget for retained earnings. It
Mm,
may have been
I
in
thought
an
I pulled it.
Excel sheet.
Here, I can pull it up. E, this is E, right?
Yeah.
This is number 4.
1.738, so $1,738,000.
Yeah. Yeah, so that'll be great if it's in our comments. Yeah, I don't see it in the sponsor comments. Yeah.
Now, the only pause I'd give you, Linda, is that's not the official retained earnings.
Okay.
That's why I don't. That's why I
Okay,
didn't
yeah.
put it in our comments.
Yeah.
So DOR needs to certify, but
Okay.
we could argue that we give the projections, and it may come up or down
Yeah, okay.
minor, but I think it's disingenuous a little bit to lock it in when DOR hasn't locked it in.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Just sort of for my
So we
own
should say that's an estimated balance, right? Not a,
Yeah, you could target that it's an estimate.
But it's not like we're draining that well dry, right? That's,
Oh, absolutely not. I won't let that
Yeah.
happen. So we're actually, our financial policy goal is to have retained earnings at 20 to 25% of our yearly operating budget. Our reserve fund is targeted at 10% of our operating budget. And after that, we're hoping to build stabilization accounts. Again, this is our 20-year financial model, but we're moving in that direction. I mean, just take that 1.7 in water and then go versus what our operating budget is. We're in a pretty good position. If you're unaware, a majority of what our town CIP is really focused on is our water capacity, which is why we're targeting those fund balances at a high level at this point.
just sort of for my, I guess, my own understanding, just to like reiterate, when you say that whatever we don't spend in fiscal year 23 becomes retained earnings in fiscal year 24, that's like specifically referring to what the water department has spent in that fiscal year. It's just the water department. Right.
So yeah, this is an enterprise fund strictly for water utility. There's also one strictly for the sewer utility.
Right.
We have a combined department, but in essence, the line items under the water enterprise fund, whatever isn't spent becomes retained earnings. But as part of our financial policy, we've been carrying over balances of retained earnings as well. So 1.7 isn't what was unspent in FY23. I would say that most likely, I want to say that was somewhere in the $250,000 to $300,000 range. But we also build in line items to offset increased rates. So we're building for long-term debt in an operating budget, which is adding to our availability of retained earnings, but it also is reducing the overall debt service in the future for large-scale projects that we have in play, which are phase 2, phase 3 of our water capacity improvement programs, which are really treatment plants, new wells. I mean, very, very expensive endeavors. It's a model that I would say I think Capcom and Select Board are thinking about adopting under the general fund. Currently, we don't do that, where we set aside operating budgets such as capital reserves. We do it very well in our enterprise funds.
all right. Do we have any additional, do we want to, I would maybe, they're kind of, I would say that the articles are probably somewhat different, so we could motion them separately. Even though it's water and sewer, the applications will be different between the articles, so that's fair way to describe it. So I would say, are there any additional questions or comments about this article? So that 1.7 would be, if this article passes, that's the estimate before DOR certification.
I think it was before.
Yes, DOR has not certified our free cash and or our retained earnings at this point.
I move to approve Article 4. or move to
All right, so
recommend.
we move to recommend. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so we have a recommend and a second. Is there any further questions or discussion? No? All right, I will take a roll call vote to recommend article number 4. Nathan?
Yes.
Mikhail?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Nathaniel?
Yes.
I am also a yes, so that is a recommend for article number 4. All right. Article number 5. Try this back again. So this is from the sewer. So water and sewer are 2 separate enterprise funds, as was kindly mentioned earlier in the call.
Yes, excellent, Jillian. So without going into too much detail, as you know, this is very similar to the Water Enterprise Fund. I would say that I believe that a majority of the community is well aware that the town of Maynard is suffering from what we refer to as a water capacity issue, meaning development, enhancement, growth is impacted because we're an isolated system. We produce our own water. The same happens on the back end. So we have our own wastewater treatment facility. We do not have a regionalized wastewater treatment facility. So if you look at it as simple as this, water comes before sewer, because without water, there's no such thing as sewer. So when we plan in our industry and we have a joint utility, we always plan at the front end, but also proactively plan at the back end for what's coming. As we are contending with a unfriendly 40B, as you're all aware, I'm sure you all got the email from Greg Johnson and others, as we are looking at unfriendly 40Bs and future development process, the water utility is highly advantageously looking to increase our water capacity, which is referred to as our 4-phase water capacity improvement program. On the back end, though, we know that we have some wastewater capacity issues, not to the levels of our water, but we do not have a model like we do with our water, with our wastewater. So accurately anticipating that we have enough capacity or not is more based on our current operations and our operators understanding what the plant is capable of doing, but it is not an analytical engineering study such as we have with our water capacity. This study in front of you allows for the town of Maynard to proactively look at both our current wastewater treatment facilities capacity while we position improvement planning for the future. The wastewater treatment plant is starting, a lot of its processes are starting to meet its end of life. And we need to understand what our current regulations are, what our anticipated growth is, and proactively start to plan for that financially. That comes when we have a full understanding of what our capacity constraints are. This model allows us to look at that from a precise metric. That being said, our sewer utility is not as strong financially as our water, because we are very sensitive to the sheer fact that the bill comes as one bill. So if we went up with sewer at 10% and went up with water at 10%, you could not handle that kind of bill changing drastically. So we balance the two with our CIP. As one moves forward and falls off, we look to grab the other. So we have either a consistent plateau or a very small curved bell. This is us positioning ourselves as we finalize our phase 1 well 4A project. While we look to permit for phase 2, which could be 5 years, the time to have the conversation of proper planning for our wastewater is now until the next 5 years. And that positions us to either proactively allow for enhancement of the community, whether it's new projects, dense projects, or it also allows us to look at it very thoroughly and what we can and cannot support without taxing our current system.
I have a question here for this dollar value. Who's doing the development of the model and this analysis? Is this going to be contracted out, or will the town do it internally?
Yeah. So who asked that question? I guess
Nathaniel.
Oh, hi, Nathaniel. So if you're unaware, the town of Maynard does not employ any full-time town engineering staff. We are a very, very limited department. We contract out our engineering services on water, sewer, civil, etc. We also contract out architectural processes. Our full-time staffing resources are very, very limited across all operational boards. I'll even argue for Natasha on this, across the school, everywhere. The entire town of Maynard has very limited resources. This is a engineering contract to perform this work.
So we already have a bid then, or a proposal from, is it a, I guess, a on-call contractor that we have, or did we specifically ask for this and then we're evaluating and have a return deadline for this?
Yep. So it's not an IFB or RFP because engineering services and public works are exempt. So we do have an on-call consultant engineering firm, Stantec, that assists, that is currently under contract, that assists us with our water and sewer utility process. This is the exact price, which is why it's 168,944. So that is the proposal.
That's what stood out to me. Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Exactly. Yep. And to that point, we are very confident with this price being the executional version of that. We also have built-in engineering and consultant lines in our operating budget. So let's say there was a minor change order, we could absorb that under operating, where I don't really want to hit retained earnings.
Actually, as a follow-up, so I suppose you don't know anything about my background. I'm actually a civil engineer. So this is kind of falling into my realm a little bit here. For a study of a town this size, that feels a little high unless you're doing an enormous amount of surveying.
We are. So unfortunately, like to my point, when I also tell you we don't have town engineering resources, we've never had town engineering resources. So there's almost no asset management in a lot of our systems.
Okay.
The town of Maynard is playing extreme catch up. We unfortunately gambled for about 10 to 15 to 20 years, which is why you saw a very stagnant town for growth, because there was no understanding of what we could support or not support. It was a lot of like cultural, well, our operators can't do this and we can't do this, without analytical proof. And asset management is one of our biggest constraints.
Okay, well, that makes a whole lot of sense. Definitely answered my questions there. Thank you.
The number might have been posted elsewhere, but do we know what like the current balance of the sewer retained earnings fund is?
Yeah, I want to say it's less than $1 million, somewhere in the 800,000 to 900,000 range.
Yep, it's 981, 358, so like 0.98 million, a little less than $1 million. So if this does pass, it would be closer to like 812K in this, if that estimate for the DOR certification is certified later.
And then I guess I just like my follow-up question would be, since this is certainly like a larger chunk of the sewer fund than in that previous article, you would be willing to say that it's like it's like the best possible or a very appropriate like use of that money. Like it's important, obviously, is what you're.
I'm extremely confident in moving this forward, and our financial plan has really been under my leadership for 6 years, where we've made that progress. I'm proud to say that, and I feel very confident in our approach with that. We are at the precipice, and I've actually presented to the state on behalf of the town of Maynard and other utilities within the Commonwealth. We are on the precipice of development being forced down our throat. This is your first unfriendly 40B. If you don't know my background, I work in the the city of Marlborough for over 20 years. It's coming. It's not when, it's not if, it's when. If we're not prepared for it, we're going to be forced into situations that could cripple our infrastructure. This allows us to be at the forefront of seeing and handling some of that process. It also allows the town flexibility in its development, meaning that we're not forced by state regulation to adopt something that we can't support. It is one where you really need to have a hard analytical understanding and background and a procedure that allows for the justification of denial. We
Right.
currently have that with our water. We do not have that with our wastewater.
Thank you.
I may have misunderstood something when Greg was explaining the forced 40B and this forced development pathway, but I thought that, at least my takeaway from it, was that even if it gets approved, it wouldn't be built if we can't support it reasonably within the current infrastructure use cases. So
you are correct. Holistic.
Okay, so we wouldn't have to build support and then actually cripple. It's more about the fact that it would force our hand.
No, you cannot. So in full detail, there is case studies out there that some towns have lost unfriendly 40Bs because they could not confirm why their infrastructure could not support. We have a strong infrastructure support metric that cannot support water capacity. Without this model, we do not have a strong support mechanism that could deny it for wastewater capacity. And there is case studies that have been brought to the Commonwealth that have ruled against communities and have forced their utilities into upgrades to handle housing projects. If you're unaware, the state of Massachusetts is in a major housing crisis. Part of the housing crisis solution is extreme regulation. 40Bs have been around for a while, but MBTA zoning, that's spot zoning. I mean, that's something that we frowned upon 30 years ago. It's being regulated down our throats, and we need to be prepared for that. There is nothing that says that development can't tap their own private wells. So if we can't support their water, that doesn't mean that development's not being built. If they tap their own wells, it can happen. I don't know how, if you all travel outside of Maynard much and you head towards the Worcester area, but there's a town called Berlin right next to Marlboro, the old spooky world. And there was a 40B, unfriendly 40B that went in. Berlin is just like Stowe, very farm town. And Berlin doesn't have water and sewer utilities at all. And the unfriendly 40B went in. They put their own wastewater treatment plant in and their own well source. So just because we can't handle it from water does not mean that development won't be forced down our throats, and that it really is up to the developer at that point.
Very interesting. Thank you. Well, I don't know if anyone else has questions, but I'm ready to vote for Article 5.
I did have just one question, sort of for my own understanding. So are we basically like doing the study to kind of like prove to the state that we have like empirical evidence of here's why we can't allow this development to be built, since we don't have like the required infrastructure? So we're sort of using this study to kind of prove it to the state, essentially. Is that right?
I would say that's one small aspect of it.
Okay.
Technically, our wastewater treatment plant is coming at its end of life, and we have extreme regulatory permits such as NIPDs. So treatability has to be studied. BioWind model is really based on the sheer fact of the biodiversity in our effluent that has to be removed, and we have ever advantageous regulations at a extreme rate. So we need to make sure that when we're conceptually planning on what our wastewater treatment plan is, we're planning for the current, we're planning for the predictability of regulation, and we're also planning for the predictability of development, meaning increased residential capacity. Right. So that's what this model brings to light. It will allow us to justify X, Y, and Z if there's a 40B, but it also is the main purpose of this is to allow us to proactively plan for the next 5, 10, 15 years so that we have an efficient and effective financial approach towards our wastewater treatment plant upgrades.
Thank you.
And would you say that the end of life is on some equipment, or would you say the end of life is on the wastewater treatment plant itself?
No. So here's the beauty with wastewaters. They are, so you heard Greg Johnson say that schools are the most expensive endeavor you're ever going to take on. That is unfortunately not correct. Wastewater treatment plants are by far the most expensive infrastructure that you can do. But the beauty with wastewater treatment plants is they can be continually modified. So there will be an extreme expense to ours, Jillian, but we do not need to abandon all of its processes. It is something that we need to. There is one of our major processes is referred to as an RBC. It's a rotating biological contact process. Jillian, you may remember that we had an emergency with the failure of our RBC, and it cost us $200,000 to fix one. So these things are extremely expensive. It will review a lot of our processes moving forward, but we do have upgrades that were done less than 20 years ago in some of our processes, and others that are past 35, 45 years at this point. So we don't anticipate a full wastewater treatment plant changeover, but we do look at this from a very, very high level that we will have significant improvements that need to be made.
Got it. Thank you. I just want to make sure I'm Englishing our comments.
I do assure you, I try to get it to like that non-super technical level.
I think it's great. I'm working with a brain full of potatoes here, so
perfect.
So I think I heard that we're going to make a motion on article number 5.
Yep, I would motion to approve Article 5, the transfer from sewer retained earnings, 168,944.
And I'll second the motion to approve Article 5.
All right, so we got a motion, we got a second. Do we have any further questions or discussions? No? All right, so I will take a roll call vote. Nathan?
Yes.
Mikhail?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Nathaniel?
Yes.
All right, I am also a yes. So article number 5 is recommended. And now I believe we're on the last water sewer article here, so the easements.
All right, excellent. So, and I want to be quick on this, but I know there's some new members, so I'm going to give you a quick understanding. So we have water, we have sewer. You get that part. I know you do with enterprise funds. Our utility is made up of water, which is 2 functions, meaning we have water treatment plants. We pull water out of the ground, raw water out of the swamps. We treat them, and then it goes to the second function, which is distribution, piping in the ground. So like overhead utility lines, grids, you hear grids all the time. We have an underground grid system. So we have a water treatment plants and we have distribution. Now on the sewer side, we have wastewater treatment plant, which is everything you flush down the toilet sink eventually goes to that treatment plant. It then turns it back into river water and goes into the Assabet. But in order to get there, it's called a collection system. So instead of transmission, because there's not pressure, we're collecting gravity. Sewer is mostly made up of gravity, meaning that if I have a high point over here and a low point here, it eventually flows downhill, right? Gravity. But topography makes changes to that. So in a collection system, there is also many mechanisms referred to as lift stations or pump stations. So there's times where you can't make a development flow naturally down to a pipe into the wastewater treatment plant. It has to be pumped up to flow back down. We actually have over 10 sewer pump stations. I want to say we're at 11 now. And those sewer pump stations are mechanical substations. And one of the major issues that we have from capacity isn't just water treatment, and it isn't just wastewater treatment. We have pinch points in our system, and that pinch point is due to our pumping stations. We have a pumping station that is on Powder Mill Road corridor, or Powder Mill Road, right behind the bank. It takes about 80% of our effluent, and it pumps it under the Assabet River up to our wastewater treatment facility on Pine Hill. That treatment plant is at a point where it is 50 years old, and it was never designed to handle the development processes that we're taking on now, such as Maynard Crossing. There was some minor upgrades to upstream collection systems as part of that, but it has actually taxed our system. And in order for any development to proceed on Powder Mill Road, as you hear the zoning overlays, MSBA, even this 40B, it will all go to this one sewer station that is ripe for failure directly into the Assabet River. So we have been very proactive. As you can imagine, this sounds like every single one has these extreme amount of infrastructure improvements that need to take place, and they do. We have targeted this specific pinch point through a collection of grants that we've been advantageously being awarded. One of them was a housing choice grant to put a conceptual design for enhancement of this pump station with a redundant line to help eliminate and reduce pollution into the Assabet River. Within that 400,000, we were able to do a high-level conceptual schematic design. And within that, there was an understanding that we needed to enhance our parcel allowance, meaning what we owned in that location. That is what you see in front of you, which is referred to as sewer easements. So these are easements that the town must take in order to improve our system to allow for its future development and improvement. We simultaneously have put in for a secondary grant under the same housing development choice program for $400,000 to finalize our design development, which would allow us to be referred to in the industry as shovel ready, which then would allow us to get into another grant process referred to as MassWorks. So if there was a 40B that we wanted or a development we wanted, we would partner with that private developer and the state of Massachusetts to secure the funds to enhance that one particular piece of infrastructure paid for by the state of Massachusetts grant process. But in order to get ourselves in a design development stage and to get ourselves to a MassWorks, we need to have all permits acquired and all easements taken. This is a proactive approach in front of our design development grant to allow us to acquire the easements. That being said, these are very minor easements in regards to all the properties they touch. A majority of the easements are on the riverfront. The metric for how, if you go down to my comments, Jillian, the costing of acquiring these easements for the town is almost minuscule at a little further down at 14,300. That's how insignificant the use of these easements are on private property. They're in river protection zone, so the parcels adjacent that would be taking these easements couldn't build on them. They couldn't do anything to them anyways. So this is a very minor request, but has a extreme upside for future development processes.
I think I'm sharing the map.
Yep, there's the map. Excellent. So if you, I don't know how many of you are used to looking at maps. You can see the Assabet River cuts right through the middle of this. There's parcels on either side. The sewer pump station is currently located in the small box that is under proposed sewer easement 7. So under it. So if you go up, Jillian, to the left, right to the right. Nope, that's an easement we're going to take. Go to the right a little bit. Right there. That box. Down a little bit. Right there. That's where our current sewer station is. And we own the driveway parcel to the left that jogs out up to Powder Mill already. And the box that's on Powder Mill is actually the bank. So we're acquiring easements adjacent to our current lift station. And we're also acquiring easements on the other side of the river, which is currently a giant wood line. But there is some weird jogs of private property and public property. We own a significant amount of that, but there is minor jog loops. So those are areas that are owned by private property, but not even close to somebody's house and or could be built on. So, and there's a sewer line currently right there, and it goes under the Assabet River.
I had one question last time that we kind of tabled for you to be here. I originally came from private development, and this kind of dollar value of this kind of land is not usually set, at least in the private development side. I have no idea how the government side works. Is that 14,300 pretty much a set number, or is that estimated number? And
Nope.
let's say that, you know, the easement number 4 owner wants to nickel and dime the town. Can they ask for more, or is this is a taking then?
So easements, everything under Mass General Law are considered takings, but this is an easement, meaning we're not actually taking property, we're taking easement rights.
Right.
But there is a Mass General Law policy procedure. So we had to conduct a third-party appraisal certified through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which was done, which is why you see all those price point values. All abutters are allowed access to those appraisers. So just so you know, we already sent out certified letters to all the abutters in advance. We do this because we are good neighbors. We don't technically have to do this, but we do it in advance with indications for conversations with the attached appraisal process. So those value amounts are set in stone.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
There are 2 typos just in the title of the article, so I don't know, can the town correct those? Acquisition and easements. I'm not sure how far we are. It's
Oh, yeah.
nothing in the article, but whoever typed the title.
Yeah, that's just a grammatical error. I mean, if you have a,
Yeah,
do
yeah,
you have
yeah.
a Word doc of that, Jillian?
I don't know who does that. I don't even think it's you necessarily, Justin.
Yeah.
It's whoever put the warrant together.
No, I mean, the drafts start with me. So
Oh, okay.
this has always been a subject. I mean, this happens literally every year.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
if
yeah.
my Word doc goes to it goes through so many hands that someone could have typoed it. Someone could have edited it. It does get edited from department heads up. I can send you it, but I just don't know if anybody else has already edited it after me. So I don't want to necessarily change any of their comments or positions. But if Jillian, if you have the Microsoft Word version of what Greg Johnson has provided, I mean, clericals can just be cleaned up. Those are simple.
Yeah, I'll note it like this and then just say that there's a spelling error in the title because they have to put our comments in there anyway. So I would assume that they can change it then.
Just more for the sake of thoroughness than anything else. Do we know what the current balance in that sewer enterprise fund is at the moment?
Which one? I'm sorry.
Just do we know what the current balance in the sewer enterprise fund that the 14,000 is coming out of?
Oh yeah, that's coming out of my operating budget. So that's a $3.21 million operating budget.
Okay,
We
yeah, sorry.
carry that. Yeah, that if this was higher, so if this would, let's just say hypothetically, this was 150,000, I would contend with requesting retained earnings in place of the BioWin model, but we're lucky to kind of move both of these processes forward. So yeah, this is absorbed under our operating budget.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have you heard back from all 7 of those property owners?
3 of them. I have a meeting with 2 of them tomorrow. I met with one of the property owners that was really impacted the most. The second that we sent out the certified mail. I know a few of these abutters already, so we gave them some advance notice in advance, like just as part of our schematic design, because we had to do some soil borings on their locations and things like that. So.
And like the do you, I don't know, were they was there any like problem? Do they have any problems with this plan?
So Nathan, most of the abutters are impacted almost by nothing, meaning they're going to get money and they actually don't necessarily lose land. This land actually is retained by the property owner. It's just a sewer easement, meaning that we either have infrastructure under the ground or we're allowed to go over their property without permission. One was potentially impacted because they're selling their property for redevelopment. But after conversations, understanding that we're not putting like a hard above ground infrastructure on any of these easements, it was limited to what their concerns were. And if you're unaware, some of these, like without drawing my utility assets, the one that Jillian originally circled was the one who thought was the most impacted, but there's currently a sewer line that already goes under that. So all the way up to the Elks. So there's a lot of sewer infrastructure that is already cresting all of this private property and public property. So you would think the sewer comes from Powder Mill Road down the driveway into that sewer pump station, but actually only the version from Powder Mill back to Acton does. All of the rest of it chases the river parallel all the way back to the Elks. That's that gravity versus pump. So we have some of the oldest sewer collection system in the country because of the mill, and changing a lot of that infrastructure costs billions of dollars for a tiny town of Maynard. So we have to kind of go with what some of our forefathers put in place and then modify and adjust as is.
Okay, excellent. Do we have any further questions or discussion about Article number 6? No? Do we have a motion?
I move to recommend.
And I will second to recommend Article 6.
All right, so we got a motion, we got a second. Any further questions, discussion, or comments? No? All right, so I'll take a roll call vote. Nathan?
Yes.
Nikhil?
Yes.
Linda?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
I am also a yes, so that is a recommend for Article number 6. Great. Thanks. Thanks so much, Justin, for walking us through those articles. Much appreciated.
Of course, no problem. I appreciate the insight, the comments. I'm always encouraged by the engagement. Welcome aboard, all you new members. I feel like you've completely changed your whole committee. But other than that, I'm always here. You are all stakeholders. If you have questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. Jillian, as I stated, I'll try to get you the full needs analysis in advance before we even present it to the select board. Well, simultaneously, I don't want you to have the copy before them, but just so you're engaged in that conversation from a FinCom perspective. Other than that, thank you for having me. Katie, I assure you, I am working very hard. You should have a new road, hopefully in the fall.
I ran into some people on Allen today and we had a full discussion about it. So
we're working through the bid process. It's because honestly, I don't want to, the intersection project is taking a lot of our resources. So I assure you it's coming.
We have faith. We have faith.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Justin.
everyone.
Thank you so much. All right. So I believe that brings us to Article number 3, about the bleachers. So we did get some sponsor comments, which I have somewhere. Here we go. That are very thorough and much appreciated. I don't know, Natasha, if you want to speak to any of this, but
Sure. Thank you. There's a lot of requests to what we should capture in our comments and try to convey and educate the community. So with all of that in mind, part of it was, people have some questions about the long-term, the ability to have long-term, that seemed to have been the most outstanding question over the past 2 or 3 weeks is a long-term rental option really even available, viable? What does that cost look like? And I think at the last meeting that I attended with you all, that was a question that your board had. Like even with the code requirements, could we even put forward? So we ended up doing a separate, and I had shared this, I think, separately, which was like an Excel sheet kind of projecting out, like, even if we had rental, what that would look like over 25 years, just for the knowns that we would, so that would be bleachers. And we were able to come up with that 5 years, it was like 4.4 million, but that still was missing all the other areas of code compliance that we were told about. So, for instance, that would not include any drinking station, changes or whatever upgraded would need to be for that. That would not include the ADA walkway or curb improvements. That would not include demoing of the current bleachers or additional hand sinks. And so kind of as we were looking this, and this includes a 5% escalation. So just thinking for rental. So that's where these unknowns kind of came in. But just with the known pieces, if this were even a solution that the school committee would entertain, you would still, at 25 years, run into the same, you're spending the same amount for rental and then after 25 years, you're not left with really any product to show for it. So we took those numbers and we kind of incorporated or embedded that into the comments as well. And this is kind of where see at 2040, this is where a debt exclusion would be paid off for 4.55 million. That is with interest. And then you can see continuing on to another 25 years, what a rental would look like. And again, this is probably a lowball estimate because it's not including any of those other areas that we wouldn't know how to solve for it really, or that haven't been explored for the code pieces. So, so we've incorporated, what that looked like after 25 years. We would still, not have a product. It would still be inferior. We just expanded on what the project entails as far as the restrooms, how it came about, that information, just a little bit of the history that was, people were asking, about the inspection, when that happened, how did we get on this path, how the task force was formed, and then just kind of chunked it out into different topics for the community to kind of process a lot, because it's a lot of information for people who might not have the complete background, so they might want to hone in onto a particular area. So the other part too, which let's see if you could keep scrolling. So yeah, so financial impact on residents. This is where we kind of outline that a little bit more, that piece where the bond interest over 15 years comes out to that. And you have that, and then then the next section kind of goes into, kind of like that why build versus rent scenario, and kind of breaks out what that is for over 25 years. Under transparency, we did add an aspect, because I think this has come up a couple of times in the quad board meeting, about educate that the school would be is projecting a shortfall for FY26 for our operating budget. So however community members may want to consider that, it's not a hidden piece of information. It's not something we're really ready to speak a lot in depth on at this point, but just to put it on residents' radar that there might be a separate conversation about operational shortfalls when it comes to FY26's budget. And kind of tying it to, I did actually correct. I see there's a little typo there at the end. So the one I had sent Greg one, and I caught that after. So that part is fixed. Yeah, thanks. The other part too is we went to the master plan just to kind of make sure that the project itself, how does it align with the master plan? And there was a lot of information in there just to kind of fall back on. And one of the particular points was just highlighting that that area is considered the recreation facilities of the greatest importance are that the town has determined are the alumni field and complex area. So this project does align with what has already been discussed with the master plan, and in keeping the town moving forward with that aspect of recreation.
Where did you come up with a 5% annual increase in perpetuity?
So the cost of the project itself is about 5%. That's what they actually, it's kind of going around between 5 or 6 for construction. So the increase of cost overall. So that's where we built into the increase of rental. So rental costs are going up each year. So they're not static. And so whatever the bleacher is for this year, it's not going to be that same amount, going forward. The cost to install them and take it down can shift a little bit because they are, doing a setup and breakdown twice a year as well. So that's where that was built in. And I know when we talked about that last time, I know Peter was here, but he kind of did like a quick back of the napkin calculation. I think he got something a lot higher, but I think he was looking at beyond 25 years when he was looking done that. So that's where that 5%.
But that's not from talking to anybody who would be like renting bleachers or like.
Yes, the Mike Ari, our director of facility. So the costs are what he's provided of what we've spent in prior years and what he's provided. And so he indicated a 4 to 5% inflationary cost that was he said should be planned for each year going forward.
For rentals?
Yes, for rentals.
Even if we got like a long-term like lease on renting?
Well, they're not year round. So it would be, you don't have like in the fall, there's three bleachers and then they take them down and then you get 2 in the spring. I can't remember the takedown, but it's like different periods. They're not all 3 the same. So it's more of a, I guess, cost saving in some ways, but you do have more touch points in the setup and breakdown of them because they're not there year round. You also have a lift. So that was the other part too that wasn't quite, the information around that. He priced out one aspect. We haven't had a lift, but that would be necessary if we, once we demo and we don't have a press box, we would need some type of capacity. And we, one area that Mike Aria was concerned with, which is really kind of an unknown, is the electrical. Right now, to operate the scoreboard and all of that is out of the press box and all the electricity kind of runs through there. So we would not know, like, how do we move the electrical setup from there? I think that is understood or believed to be one of the more complex parts of the demoing of alumni versus just tearing it down, like the visitor bleachers. So this is just what the town provided to us. I just put it on the same document for the $70. And then this was just to kind of consolidate. I had some questions on how much have we spent so far, our funds committed for the project. And this is about what has been spent so far or committed.
And we did also get clarification that from the CPA that this project would not qualify for CPA funds. I'm not sure if you saw that. It's late breaking news, I guess.
Yeah. So there's 2 pieces. One, I did see their email. Mary and I couldn't attend their meeting last week. So town council has not come out and said anything that the project is not eligible. Town council said that the bathrooms would be considered, but the state, the CPA, they made an assumption that just because the bathrooms would be supporting the bleacher, that they assume that would be assumption that the bathrooms would not be considered, but the bathrooms don't only support the bleacher. Like you have softball fields all around there. So it's not, I don't know if they just are not familiar with the setup of that space, but so I don't think the question was posed to town council about the other parts or that the project was, I haven't seen anything from town council that said the project as itself was not, none of it was eligible for CPA, but just only the bleacher part. However, I'm just not gonna fight that, at this point. I don't really feel there's a big appetite for them wanting to approve it anyway, so.
Yeah, I'm saying it more to let the committee know that this avenue was explored. There's been
Yeah.
a couple of back and forth periods. There was an application to the CPC or
Yeah.
CPA. I always mix up the acronyms here, but
Yeah. Exactly, yeah, so we had an application for the construction piece, and had gotten delayed, I guess, for deciding on whether to fund or not, and yes, they voted, I guess, their last meeting last week, that they would reject the application.
yes, as it currently stands is my understanding. Yep.
In the sponsor comments, in the section titled next steps, you had mentioned that a no vote at the special town meeting would even make it impossible to sort of demolish the current bleachers or sort of do anything pretty much. So my question was just from the general fund amendment, the Maynard School Committee does get some funds which they can use at their discretion. I think like 75,000. I don't remember the exact number, but
76, yeah.
76. Could that amount of money be used for any of the demolition or any of the sort of kind of much smaller costs that are like associated with this project, sort of even in the event of a no vote, or is that not something that can happen?
So as of like last week or a week and a half ago, we thought maybe that would be, we hadn't been quite final. The other major project that's happening is we have an HVAC issue at the school. So the year before, we had approved about, I don't know, maybe 200,000. We had a capital last fall town meeting, which was going to cover the replacement of one HVAC and the repairs of a secondary. But this is kind of what we mentioned before, and there was mold that also resulted that from over the summer with the heat, and one of the HVACs not operating very well. That second unit actually now needs to be replaced as opposed to repair. So Brian just shared some numbers with the school committee late at the end of last week. And with the 76,000, we're still 60,000 short to replace that second unit. So we will be using that 76 for HVAC purposes, which doesn't leave, at this point, a funding source for, we still have to figure out how do we fund the rest of the HVAC thing, but also, and we might be coming back to FinCom for part of that, for a reserve fund emergency if we don't, we're going to look at our funds and we're going to have a budget meeting to talk about that a little bit more later on this week. But to your point, it doesn't leave anything for demoing, which I think was one of the options that we could use the money for, but now it looks like it's the cost of the second HVAC is exceeding what we have. So that will be the priority.
Sure. Thank you.
Natasha, what would happen? I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards, I think deferring this till the spring town meeting, because the select board sort of pushed off an election, so we would save the cost of this special election if it passed at town meeting. And would there be anything else happening? I think the voters would have more information about, we learned tonight that we won't see the impact of Green Meadow until now our January tax bills. And then you've mentioned again that the school committee is going to be looking at an override, it sounds like a pretty substantial override. And would it be better? I mean, I'm just kind of leaning towards that. And I don't know, I'm also concerned about, the sponsor comments were really well written. They were very helpful, I have to say. But you mentioned here again, a big concern of mine is that the track is near its end of its life and the field is undersized. And I just feel like the bleachers aren't for the athletes. It's for I guess the spectators.
Not necessarily. The bleachers get used for the spectators, but students use the bleachers. We have band who sits in the bleachers, student sections. I mean, it's used for if we have bleachers, we rent out the field sometimes, so we can do
Yeah.
for various things. I think that the track itself, when we say more end of life, it's not like next year. I don't think anyone was even looking at necessarily 5 years per se. What I do know what happens with the track right now is because there's no bleachers, people are using the track and putting chairs a lot more on the track. So it's actually getting more wear because we don't have adequate seating for spectators in a more appropriate place. So you do have people who are standing on the track a lot more and gravitating to that place, which will probably accelerate, in some places potentially the wear. The field itself is usable. I think it was more of looking forward. They want it, so it's for football, that's fine. They use it for soccer, but there's certain soccer tournaments that the school would like to host in the future. And I don't know if this team advances to certain levels with, regional or league, that it has to have a certain measurement. So that's where we built in that potential. It's part of the designs. I hear what you're saying about the potential to delay. I would, to that point, the project just gets more expensive. With that, it got more expensive from delaying from last spring to the fall. And so, right now I was happy that we got at 3.4, that it was kind of going into the opposite direction. I don't know, what that would look like as we wait. And I don't know, by waiting what we're gaining for just for another 6 months, right? Because it's $70 a person or a family or a household, sorry. So I don't think you're buying the town or residents a lot of time, just waiting for, 6 more months necessarily from a financial impact. You'd have to really, I think to save a hardship, I'm like, we're talking like years you'd want to be delaying, right? Because $70 in 1 year for some people is probably very hard, but I think in the context for one household is not delaying 6 months isn't going to make a huge difference in the savings versus what the cost of the project could go. I don't know. That's just my thoughts on that. But I hear what you're saying.
Right. It's
Natasha.
and I've
oh,
never
sorry.
been to a high school football game, but it's on my calendar. I looked up the schedule and I'm going to go.
Good. We want to have you go. Yes.
Right. To see what the story is in terms of attendance. And
I'll send you some good dates when we have some home games.
I put the home games on my calendar, so I will
good.
go this fall. So I'm very sorry I haven't been in the past, but I will.
Okay. It's okay.
I will go to one.
Natasha, I had a question just about interest rates, and I don't know if it plays into it at all, but when going for bonds for a 15-year duration, will the it hasn't happened yet, but the feds are likely lowering rates, quite a bit come, this fall, winter, and maybe even earlier spring. Would that potentially make borrowing the money less expensive by delaying, or has that been discussed at all?
I do know that, 3.5% is not a high rate.
It's a good rate, yeah.
Yeah, it is a good rate. But I do know in the past, we've also as a town refinanced, whatever that term is for like town bonds.
Yeah.
Like we've done that. And I don't know if Jillian maybe can speak to that, because it happened maybe about like right before COVID, I want to say. We had a couple of so there, I think bond council does look at, or the town, are there opportunities where we might be able to benefit. So that this wouldn't, if 3.5, the numbers go down, significantly or some point, remember that this wouldn't hit right away either. So, so it wouldn't be like, this is an estimate based on what we know right now. But if the rate goes lower by the time that they do need a bond, then great.
Which could be, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I know a lot of people are hoping for that good news on
it. All right, that makes sense. Thank you.
And I know Greg has said this before, and I think he said it earlier. Although this is a more relatively smaller bond, but sometimes they don't take out the whole bond at once either. They're just looking at the project. So, whatever they need at that point to do that. So that probably is also a factor in their strategy.
I have too many windows open right now.
Does anybody else have any other questions on that? I will tell you that the projecting out was a really good exercise to do because we've heard, we've had some information from Greg, the athletic director, different places, and it was kind of looked at for like some of the pieces of rental equipment was, but not really thinking about in whole and also the long term, over 25 years or even like, whatever that might look like. So I think it was just a good exercise to kind of show in numbers.
The articles usually don't include the interest in them. It's just for the capital cost.
Right. This is so this is the amended. Right. This is actually, yeah. So this is the amended piece that after bond council had taken out some language towards
Okay.
the end, because there was a couple of a sentence or two, and the original one was like about like rates or something, and then they said that's out. They said it was outdated. They told Greg, and Greg forwarded that. So
Okay.
we struck that before. And the assessment, just for clarity, what we have, the estimate is based on 3.5 million. This is 3.4, not a huge difference, but just for a month, that's a discrepancy because we had the town run the estimates for the household. I think it was based on what they thought it would be more of a 3.5. So.
Okay. And this was, my understanding is this was accepted by the select board to be on the warrant.
Yes, it'll be on the
wasn't
warrant.
accepted
Yeah.
At the time for the.
Yeah.
ballot.
Greg, yes, they accepted it on the warrant, and they're going to be adding your comments and our sponsor comments to the article before it goes to print.
Okay.
Yes, because I guess the select board doesn't have authority over our sponsor comments. So that's why they couldn't really do anything about it.
Yes. Yep. More for clarifying the situation, because I know there's for the recording.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to make as a committee tonight?
I would motion to support Article 3.
Okay, so you would motion to recommend Article 3. Do we have a second to recommend?
I will second to recommend Article 3.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to recommend. I will open the floor for any discussion or comments.
I'm really on the fence about this one. This is one where I feel like personally, like on my vote at special town meeting, I'm gonna be voting in favor of it. Like I think it's a good project. I know I know a $70 increase in taxes doesn't seem that bad to me. It's good for property values probably. I'm like a short walk from the field. It's just nice to have in town. I don't know, but I feel like split on like whether as a member of FinCom, I would like recommend it as like the best like financial decision for the town. I see like a lot of upsides. I'm really concerned about the amount of debt that we've taken on in the last couple of years, especially knowing that we're having major like DPW garage and like water and sewage that's going to take capital funding in the near future. I wish there was some more information about what like long-term rentals of equipment would look like. Like I know you did the projection. I feel like the 5% like inflation annually is probably pretty high for something, and it feels like I don't know. I wish there was something more to compare it to. I mean, I'm just thinking like there's a reason why sometimes you have to look, buying is better than like renting in like a long term. But if we already have a lot of debt right now, there's a reason people rent instead of like buying. There's a reason you might have, like lease a car instead of taking out a big loan to buy one outright. I think one thing that's swinging me as FinCom in favor of this is seeing that revision that Greg showed us at the beginning of this meeting. I mean, like going into this meeting, I was probably going to vote no as like FinCom on this. But knowing that like the amount of like our debt service is actually a lot lower than I thought going in, maybe that gives us more room to take this project on. I don't know. I'd be very curious what other people think about this.
I agree with a lot of what you said. Maybe a point of clarification that for me at the very least is this is a 15-year term because I'm assuming it's a smaller project. The bigger ones like the garage and the water infrastructure improvements, those are probably going to be 25s. I don't know, do bond terms go bigger than 25 for projects of
Yeah.
that scale? So
30, I think. Yeah,
that might
30.
not be
30.
Yeah.
30. That could also be a different piece of it, that this one will drop out sooner.
And it's important to note that water sewer infrastructure updates will go through the enterprise funds and not the general fund.
And that was another
They
piece
will
I was
not.
going to bring up too.
Is it like 100% through the enterprise fund? Is that what Justin was saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%. They will not come from the general fund at all. That's why we have enterprise fund.
But we pay it through our water and sewer bills, which go up every year.
Yeah.
So,
That's
I
the
mean,
funding source.
in respect to it was very encouraging what Greg presented at the beginning, because last week it was 5 million debt service. This week it's 3 million. I still can't understand how we know the debt service if we haven't borrowed the whole 54 million, why the debt service isn't going to go up. I mean, I can understand with a construction loan, you don't need to borrow the whole 54 million now. But if you borrow, why do we think we've maxed out the interest? I want to look at that. And I know it's a risk to defer to the spring, but I think we'll have more information on what the school needs for overrides. And that's teachers and students. And I know, football games are great. And I think we have to just set priorities. That's just my sense is I don't think we can do everything, but.
I don't know if this number was mentioned elsewhere, and that might be on the big spreadsheet, but do we know what like if we voted yes on this, do we know what the like resulting debt service percentage would be? Going forward?
We have
4.5.
gotten breakdowns like this.
Yeah, this is what the town gave us
As
on.
I said, we might have an idea, but judging from what we just got for the debt service for the biggest project the town's had for a while, Green Meadows dropping by 40%, I
Right.
feel like it's kind of a little bit of magic numbers on the back end with this bond service versus, I mean, we all think of loans with cars and mortgages and everything. And as Linda was saying, like, I agree with her. I don't necessarily understand how they can say we haven't borrowed it all, but we're going to stick at this 3 million number for the entire term. I think that means that they've just estimated what, like they've done their magic numbers and they're like, this is what it will be out on average. And this is what we're going to plan for the entire time. So in the beginning, we're probably high, the middle will be on task, and the end will be low. But that's just what I guess on my part of how to interpret that. But
My
so
understanding is
Nico-
that first years can be a little wonky. So the first year when they actually start the building, you don't necessarily get billed a consistent number. And then after the first year, you get billed a consistent number for the rest of the year. I don't know if that makes sense with words.
Yeah.
No, it does, Jillian, because they're sending different invoicing, like it's a lot of it's fluctuating depending on what they're doing in that moment, like for the reimbursements that we're getting back for right now. So they're kind of going up and down.
And the project was slightly delayed, I think, because of a permitting thing, from my understanding. So
Can I just add
but it
something
sounds like it
else?
started this weekend.
On this particular for the bleacher. So after this year, there probably will be no bleachers and there'll be no other alternatives there. So at this point, we're out of compliance with code requirements. And I don't think rightfully we can continue on in that way. Like the bleachers that we have now are not compliant with ADA. They're not compliant. And so we would have to stop that model. And in order to be compliant, it means we have to tear down what we have and we would just not have bleachers. We have no funding source for an alternative anyway. And like, so those rentals that we're talking about, 60,000, there's been no discussion from the town on how we can't as a school fund that. And there's been no alternative that's been proposed to us to consider. So I assume that there is no funding source that's going to be dedicated to this. Because to your point, there's a lot of other projects. You know, normally everything that's been funded so far has been free cash. And free cash is probably going to go, you know, lower, and there's other areas. So there is no funding source at this point that would be rentals beyond this year, and certainly none that's going to explore what kind of construction designs, like what to do for the ADA, you know, just to bring that piece up, or to add water fountains or hand sinks. So the reality is there's no other, like we'd have to just stop. That's where we're kind of getting to in the end. Like it would just kind of stall. We'd have to maybe just fence around what we have now until we can, you know, demo. We might have money to demo potentially. And I think the numbers that we last received were about 50,000. Justin and Greg had advised right before the summer, because we were exploring that at that point because it was a safety issue before the fence went up. So that's just kind of where the school committee has really no appetite for long-term rental, and they're considering that we've already been told it's not compliant with code.
Is it true to say that there are like no rentals whatsoever, you know, no rentals in existence, sort of long-term or otherwise, that would be ADA or code compliant?
You can get the bleachers we have now, which is what the cost includes in that proposal, is what we have now. And those are not ADA bleachers. So we would have to, you know, price out. So the cost would actually be higher for ADA bleachers because you have to have certain easements in that. So this number is just what it is now. And that's what we kind of built out. So that would be higher going forward if we were to do ADA bleachers. And then all the other stuff. So Greg had put in here one standard porta potty, one ADA when he priced it out, but I don't think that meets the code requirements for toilets actually, but that's what I put in here because that's what he priced out. But that actually is insufficient, I think, for the number of toilets you need for the temporary structure from what the plumbing inspector had provided. So this is actually a really low number for what you would actually need for a rental to meet code compliance for ADA and plumbing.
And they would need
does,
drinking stations too, right? Natasha, we'd have
right,
to do plumbing
you
to
need
get that
drinking
in.
stations, you need hand sinks. In order to have hand sinks, you need to make sure the water can be temperatured up to a certain amount, you know, there's just a lot of, those are things that are just not a reality. I'm just going to be honest. And then the ADA walkway, that's really the whole entry. That's entering from Great Road, but also the parking lot. They were supposed to be part of the project is including curb, so that the wheelchair, because right now it just kind of, when it goes from the curb into the parking lot, there's no like ADA ramp. It just is kind of like drops off. So they were going to be making enhancements over that as well.
So I guess I wanted to say something about why I decided to start the recommendation for this is that I actually came in probably thinking no, but then looking at this spreadsheet here and knowing that there is no other choice. So like from a personal standpoint, I would vote this yes up and down the board. But from FinCom, I was a no at first, and I switched to a yes because despite my, I would say, frustrations being painted into a corner here, not having good information, this is adequate, but you know, as you said, it's not the right number of porta potties, it's not the right cost for bleachers. We haven't actually investigated in any way, shape, or form what level of project site improvements would be needed. Feels lackluster at best. However, this is still a minimum. It's not going to go down when we get this extra information. It's only going to go up. So that would mean that cost to town should, in theory, be less by building. And that's what switched me over as a FinCom viewpoint. And that's why I went with yes on this, is that despite, in my mind, a severe lack of due diligence, it's enough. And it does paint a pretty clear picture that there is no other real choice here. So not sure if that helps the other members at all, but that was why I proposed it after probably starting up with a no in my mind.
I feel like I don't know if this would be helpful to anyone either, but like I don't know, I feel like where I'm at is between sort of a yes now and a yes in the spring, and just sort of, you know, I think as Linda maybe briefly touched upon, just sort of getting the impact of like the Green Meadow on, you know, people's taxes, you know, come January. I don't know if anyone else would want to weigh in, or you, Natasha, but is how much of a difference would that make, you know, in terms of a yes now versus a yes in the spring, in terms of, you know, the sort of whole cost of the thing?
Well, we know the Green Meadow taxes, right? Impact on, or what the impact is going to be on our taxes. We haven't seen it, but we've been told what it is.
Right.
Yeah, I think that, so I look at FinCom's recommendation if you think it's the best project for the town, you know, that's what I would, as a resident, like if I take my school committee hat off, I'm like, okay, does FinCom feel like this is a project that is, you know, meets the long-term vision of the town, right? I don't know if much is going to change. Now, to be to the point, we are relying on select board. They would still have to call an election. So they may still not call an election within 90 days, and it may still end up going to Springtown meeting anyway, you know, just by their not taking. So we are relying on the select board. We don't make it happen anyway at this point. It's really not us. So we're just at the mercy of what the select board decides to do. They may not call the election, even if this were to go and pass at town, they may still not call an election until the spring. And that would be, we would have to revisit at that time. I would want to, if it's a timing, I don't know what 6 months, I'm having a hard time myself trying to understand what 6 months buys you for savings for a resident. You know, because I think it just kicks the can. Like that's why we are where we are with this project, because nobody wants to make a decision with it.
I think
but
costs would go up in 6 months. Like it would just
they
make
do.
it more
It went up from the
expensive.
spring to the fall. That's what I'm trying to look for. What is it we're looking to gain between now and the fall? And I can tell you right now, to Nathaniel's point, yeah, we might be able to get more solid numbers, but they're not going to be prettier numbers. We're only going to be, you know, saying that it's going to cost more. And I can tell you right now, I don't know anyone's budget who has the time and the resources to be, you know, pricing out projects that we don't have funding for at this point. You know, hand sinks or plumbing at this, there's not any funding for any of that to do. So we would need money for that. We don't have like the RFP that we put for the designs is for the project. So we'd have to have a separate RFP or something if there's like a smaller scale that would just be for curb, and that's a long time. And I don't know, again, the value of what it's going to add to the project. It's not going to actually make it more cost efficient in any way that I can see.
Is the RFP where that 3.4 million came from? Roughly speaking.
The 3.4 million came from the designers. They proposed 750 seats. They had 750 and 950 broken down to what that would cost as of August. And that's where that
so
750
we
is, where
don't,
that 3.4 million is for 750 seats as of now. So it
Okay.
would go up if,
right, so there's no bid, there's no expiration date we're fighting against. This is simply an estimate at this point.
well, it would go up. So it would be more. So it would be more that we have to ask
Yeah.
for. It won't be 3.4 million in the spring, because we had, I think it was 3.2 from the last spring. And when we delayed it, it went up like 150 or 200,000, just waiting a few months. And plus then you have to add in, you have to do more rental as well. So right now we have paid off, or we have budgeted, I guess, from free cash rental for this year. We don't have rental for next year.
We can't rent is what we've already kind of determined.
If we have a project that's underway, I think that, the building inspector, because that's part of what he recommended, is that you could do
okay.
like retrofitting and all this stuff. If you have, like, he wants a town to pursue new bleachers, and that's what he put in his inspection report. So that's, I think, if we are not pursuing new bleachers in the interim, I think that the building, I wouldn't feel comfortable pursuing rentals beyond this year. I don't even feel comfortable right now, to be honest with you, but I don't think in the middle of football season is the time to really push that argument.
Yeah, and I'm putting it up here just to highlight for the committee as well that there was some CPA funds that did pay for the design study. We also had some money over from free cash to support the funding, and then obviously the rental of the bleachers and the fences. So we've spent almost $500,000 just on this process so far.
Right. So if we were to delay, like, our contract for our OPM, I think expires, I think we're about halfway through it. The other part too is that I asked Greg, and Greg did not have a response back for me, but if we decide not to pursue this, and we haven't, I think I don't know if we're still contractually obligated to pay the OPM for the full contract. Because that's what they were hired under to do. So that's almost like money down the drain in some way.
And these, from my understanding of what I've seen of the designs, we're focusing on like one side of the field would get the bleachers at this time with the press box. Somewhere else would be the bathrooms and the snack stand, and it's sort of designed in mind for potential changes to the field or track in the future. Like you're planning for the future for some of these, like you're talking about how the soccer field might be a slightly different size, blah, blah, blah.
Right. So they did the, part of the designs was factoring in a setback. So if the track at whatever point, 5 years that needs to be replaced, it would still allow to expand up to 51, I think it was 51 feet. I have to go back and look, but Tom Hesback, who was on the rec commission, he was part of, really advocating for that. And that was the guidelines that they did. And they came back with the design so that the bleachers would not interfere with the expansion of the alumni track. I mean, the alumni field, once the track were to be replaced in the future. I don't know if anyone's gone to Alumni Field and just the entryway from Great Road. It's terrible. It's like rocks, and it's really not accessible at all. At a minimum, it's a hazard for little kids, and for people with mobility issues. It's not a clean. So that alone is just long overdue. A lot of it's just long overdue. I know you guys have a motion and discussion. I don't want to keep adding, but I just wanted to make sure that I pled my case as much as possible and wanted to make sure you had information. I know you guys, it's tough. So I appreciate the deliberation, the thought you guys are given to, and no hard feelings either way.
Yep, so we have a motion to recommend, which currently stands. Is there any further comments or discussion at this time? All right, so I'm not hearing any. So I will take a roll call vote to recommend Article number 3. Let me double check the number. Article 3, the bleachers. So we'll start at the top of the Zoom list, Nathan,
Yes.
Nikhil,
Yes.
Linda,
No.
Katie,
Yes.
Nathaniel.
Yes.
All right, so I am also a yes. So the article does pass. Or is recommended at this time.
Thank you. And Linda, just because I'm just to add to everyone, but the school committee is also going to see, although it didn't print as 11:30 a.m. in the seniors newsletter,
Yeah.
but the school committee is going to be on Friday.
Yeah,
going to speak
I
with the
saw that.
seniors.
That's
Yeah,
great.
Mary and
Because we
I
don't
have
want to
done
be
it.
in competition.
No, I
Yeah.
hate when projects get
Yeah.
framed that way.
Yeah.
So I would really, love any opportunity just to either share information or understand. I don't like when projects
Yeah.
get pitted against each other, because the town should have a better strategy. They
Yeah.
can move forward in multiple
mean,
projects in
This is a
in
tough
some
project,
way.
and I'm almost glad we voted for it. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
and
no, I
it
know,
might win
know.
in October. So
But
either
any other
way.
information that comes up or any other questions
Yeah.
and follow up, please reach out, let me know.
Yep.
I'm certainly will share anything, but I appreciate everyone's thoughtful deliberation. I really do.
And I'll see you at a game.
Yes, yes. Please let me know when you go, so I'll meet you there.
Yeah.
All right, so so as this currently stands, we have triple check in here. Don't save, openness, recommendations, okay. Word file. All right, so as this currently stands, just triple checking, we have voted on all the articles. I am so pleased with us. Okay, so the last hurdle that we have is to sort of come together and talk about the words of our comments for each of the articles. So I would propose that we sort of go from the top down and just go through them and see how we feel about them. We don't necessarily have to vote on them as a committee, like it's not super formal. It's more sort of coming to a consensus to make sure that what is in the comments is clear and concise for the town voter, so they can sort of understand why we came to the decision to recommend or not to recommend the article, and the potential like financial impacts to help them come to their own decision. And it's also kind of a goal not to be redundant with the sponsor comments, but it's always a good thing to understand what is in the sponsor comments too.
The deadline for all of these is tomorrow morning, right?
That is correct. So we have just tonight, and if
Okay.
we don't come to a consensus on the articles, then I can delete the comments and say like to be provided at town meeting. And then I think Katie, you've done this in the past where you've had to read our comments at the meeting
Yeah.
if they didn't meet the
Yeah.
print form. So yeah, so I have everyone's comments that have been sent to me on email. So thanks so much for those. And
Diving right in,
Yeah.
I would almost remove the word unanticipated increase right there. Right below where your cursor was a second ago. It's right in the middle. Just because by definition, I feel like this is an unanticipated piece. So I would just use increase, make it more succinct. No one has any objections to that.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yep. I'm gonna delete the word most because I feel like that is an opinion. But distributed, schools. I would propose just to be more succinct because as you reference in there, it says in the sponsors comments exactly what those funding numbers will be for. Do we feel like that last line is necessary about how the funding will be allocated based at the school committee's discretion?
I don't know that we need that.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably not.
'Cause I would think it's assumed if the money's going to the schools that they get to use it for what they feel needed.
At the very least, if we did include that, then we would also, just to be fair, have to say it's also, you know, the town can do it at their own discretion too.
Right. So I felt like maybe I'm trying to put on my Peter hat and make our comments as concise as
No,
possible.
no, I
which is
think
great.
removal is better than addition. So yeah.
Okay. Do you feel good about this? Would you like me to do speak and spell and read it out loud? No, maybe.
No,
I
I
don't
think
mind.
we're good reading.
Okay.
Jumping into the next one, I've been harping on this for a while. Funds raised by an existing 1.5% real estate tax. We don't have to do it, but for me, it makes a big difference.
There we go. So I don't know how to show both things at the same time, but I'm looking at on my second screen the sponsor comments at the same time too. If that's helpful, I can toggle between them. Oops. Okay, and I see that you updated the language to say if the article passes, it will have a balance of blah. So thanks for that update. Just making sure I put in the new one in here. Keep me honest, Nathan.
I'm not sure I made that update. You might have done that.
Oh, I might have done that. Okay, let's make sure that I did it for everything then.
We'll have if it passes, it will have a balance of, it is a little confusing to me. Because it isn't
Okay.
the current balance that 214 or?
No, let me open the email from the CPC. All right, so the amounts will have if the warrant article passes. So that is not what is in there currently. That is if the article passes.
Probably opening a can of worms here by mentioning a comma, but does the comma after the word passes, should it be there? Everyone has their own comma opinions for sure.
I use commas way too much. I would say I would pause
I
my
do
word there,
too.
but
I'm
the
a
word
semicolon
probably
dash.
says no.
I'm semicolon dashes kind of guy, but I'm saying no to the comma there too. But like I'm not saying I'm a prime choice for what to go on this one.
I would cut if the article passes. I would say the Historic Preservation Reserve Fund has a balance of 234,000, say what it currently is, of which up to 20,000 would be used, etc.
34. 34, 99, 26, yep. Okay. Trough. I always make sure trough and it's not through, okay?
And then on the last sentence, I would say these funds would be used in part to create an accessible seating area. There's other like planting and stuff doing, but like mitigating erosion and like past flooding is part of the purpose of this.
Sorry, I missed that sentence.
Oh, the last sentence, these funds would be used, could you insert in part?
Right, so these numbers also need to be updated. Math. So this would be if the article passes. 776 49. And 8466. So that is 86. 86. 5. If I math correctly. So that is the open reserve space fund, 7,717, 649 plus 8466. Yep, 86.
We'll have the following.
Okay. So I don't know if you saw, I'm going to toggle between our comments and the sponsor comments. So the water trough, they talk about that, the $20,000. For the open space, they're talking about native plants right now for erosion. It doesn't say, and assign signage and seating. So it doesn't necessarily say anything there about ADA. And I feel like if it's not explicitly stated, I don't think we should say it's ADA compliant, because then what if it isn't?
Yeah, that's what they said at the CPC meeting, but yeah, if you want to cut that, that makes sense to me.
So I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna share the Word file. All right, so I'm gonna say these funds would be used in part to create seating. Signage, let's see if I English, and improve plantings less words.
I would say install plantings. You don't necessarily,
There we go, install.
or
And
plant plantings or something. I don't know.
Should it say like what the plantings are of, or would that be sort of extraneous information?
In the sponsors thing, it says native plants. I can put native plantings if we would like to add a verb.
You write seating and signage instead of seating / signage. And then it'll be and to install native plantings.
That's good with the comma. You don't have too many ends.
Well, removing the previous and changes the tense. So, because it's create seating, signage, and then install is like a new verb, so it would be a new list.
And install.
You could say to add seating, signage, and native plants.
Like that.
Remove to install.
Or you could put install at the front if you wanted it, if you still wanted to keep that in reference to the plantings.
I think add's a better word.
Okay. I feel like Sister Mary's would come out here and beat me for conjugating stuff wrong. Okay. So grammar school flashbacks. All right, are we satisfied with this? The comments for our Article 2 recommendations. I feel like this captures.
I think it's good.
Okay.
Jillian, did you go to a Catholic school? I'm just curious because that's what it's.
Oh yeah, definitely I did. Yeah.
When you said that, I had flashbacks. I went to Catholic school.
I apologize.
I
Sam.
know. I'm just like, oh man.
Starting this with the comma
Getting
thing.
the
my
ruler
bad.
out.
It is. Oh yes. Okay. Anyway, I'll continue, but I'm just laughing behind the scenes.
All right. So
So this was a comment written without knowing how we would vote. That's kind of first paragraph is sort of stating the case. Second paragraph is saying what the proposal would do. Third paragraph is additional information on what's nice about it. Fourth paragraph is these are financial concerns, and fifth paragraph is like we don't know what the cost of not doing this is. No, would compel the town to explore other options because the situation as it stands is not code compliant. Something has to be done. But so it might be cheaper, but by delaying action, a no vote may result in a costlier project. So I feel like this is like a pretty good framework for what we want to talk, but we might want to change what we're emphasizing. And I would definitely say, I would definitely remove the comment in the penultimate paragraph about debt service is now over 10% of our annual budget, because that's not true.
I would say two things for this is that we don't necessarily state that there is, and this is kind of somewhat, maybe not new information, but kind of explicitly stated that at this point, the no vote does lead to no bleachers because we don't have a rental plan going forward. And then also to give Linda some, she was the no vote here. I feel like if there's anything specifically on the no side of the equation that isn't added there, I would ask that Linda puts her voice in there in some way, unless it's already focused on.
Yeah, I was going to say in the paragraph about the debt service is if we could allude to anything about, I mean, the school committee did talk, I think even in their sponsor comments, they talked about an operating deficit, I believe. And they certainly, I think it's in there. We've taken on significant new debt. The school department thinks they might need an operational override. And if we had deferred to, and we will have the cost of a special election if it passes town meeting. That we might have wanted to defer to the spring. So that the town could see everything all together.
It's, I think further down, Jillian, is the transparency piece
Yeah.
maybe, where it had about the operating
Yeah,
somewhere. I think maybe not. Nope, maybe further up, sorry.
yeah, there it is, transparency, yeah,
Is it? Okay.
yeah.
Oh, and just something to quickly add, with special town meeting in the spring, the election is before the
Yeah,
meeting. So that was one of the reasons why we pivoted from last time. So putting it there would still be like the ballot vote potentially before the article, which is a little
Yeah.
backwards, I think, but
Mm-hmm. All right.
You know, the other concern I had was that the track, I mean, Natasha said the track probably has 5 years to go. The field, I'm not sure how much longer. It's certainly not the right size that, you know, we could expect more. We need more capital improvements, and I probably that's not the only thing in the fields too. It's just, you know, it's just a priority issue.
Yep. All right. So, oh, I'm not sharing the right screen anymore. Do. All right. Right. So, I think we should mention a comment in here about how, we have currently spent, the town has spent, is the 2025 date, that's what's spent in this general fund budget. So that has been also spent.
I actually disagree with personally about putting how much the town has spent to date on the plan. Or are you talking about the plan or on the rental bleachers?
I was going to put in here that about how we've spent a certain amount of money on the designs. So from both free cash and CPA funds to come up with this proposed article. So I was going to look.
I personally feel that I don't like the idea of looking at like how much we've already spent on the plan as an argument in favor of implementing a plan. Like a bad plan is still a bad plan. Not that this is one,
right?
Regardless of how much we spent on it. And I feel like it, even though we're recommending it, I feel like it's kind of biasing in favor of the plan. Does that make sense? Does anybody else agree with that?
No, that makes a lot of sense.
I get that.
And,
I agree.
The higher that number, the more you might get a guilty yes vote versus an honest
Right.
yes vote. And it is due diligence that should be done.
We
Right.
might want to amend the sentence before. A long-term plan was developed by the town to fix the site and fully bring it up to the code, the sentence before. Because we did develop the plan. I mean, we've done so much work.
Well,
Long-term plan
You could
has been
say this
developed.
is a long-term plan.
I think what I meant with that sentence is that there has to be a long-term plan.
Oh, okay.
Going into the next paragraph, this proposed plan would do
Okay.
this.
Okay, never mind.
But yeah, the point in that sentence is that something has to be done, if not necessarily this particular one. A no vote still means we have to do something.
Okay.
I would say like we are some language that says we are compelled to do something because it's a legal issue.
Right, but so I think this comes back to our meeting last time when we talked about it. You don't necessarily want to be like, hey, we're not in compliance, come and sue us. Like,
Yeah.
You also, I mean,
that's not something you want to put in writing.
we're also not required to do it. We could just demo and leave it as a field, technically speaking.
Correct.
So there is no reason to bring the site to code. We could just remove the bleachers entirely.
Maybe a long-term plan is advised to like match the town's master plan, or I don't, some other, I don't know.
Maybe like bring this site to code while still having bleachers or something along those lines vaguely.
We could cut that sentence entirely.
Or just delete it.
Yeah.
We got a lot of content there.
Actually, yeah, yeah. That works.
Even the rest of it, like the majority of the cost of that and on is probably redundant of the sponsor comments.
I think because it's called Bleacher Project, like in the title of the article, the fact that the bleachers is a smaller portion of the total cost, it's a point of confusion when I've talked to people in town about this. I think it's useful to state that somehow.
Yeah, I would agree.
I don't know if part of it as well would be, since the sponsors' comments are really long, if we wanted to have like a succinct version sort of in our own comments, then we should, I don't know, probably include all of the even things that might be redundant, just because people might get lost in sort of the length of the sponsor comment.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So, something about how this isn't compliant long-term. Proposed plan would update bleachers.
Once you've done that,
Add a bathroom and
oh, I see. Well, maybe write my suggestion once you're done. Sorry.
yeah, and what is the press box?
At below, maybe instead of deleting anything, I reworked the majority sentence because it was bugging me a little bit.
Okay.
But there's no chat here, so I can't paste it. So I wrote out that the majority of the cost would go towards a new building, comma, including bathrooms and a concession stand, comma, alongside associated plumbing, electrical, and site work. Alongside associated. I don't think you need to have the necessary. And you can just use site work too. To be honest, you don't need to say plumbing electrical. It's a little redundant.
Okay.
Can you split that first paragraph back into 2 paragraphs? Starting with the proposed plan. Thanks.
All right. I feel that this is a opinion, and I would like to delete this paragraph.
Great.
Yep.
I do think we need to have a paragraph about how there's a lot of upcoming potential debt exclusions or otherwise coming up.
Maybe starting this with just the town has recently.
Voters. There are many. How did we phrase it in the?
Or we would
draft
like to
meeting?
recognize, the finance committee would like to recognize that the.
Any other important capital projects? Yet to be funded? Or
Yeah. When was that? Was it August tri-board meeting?
July it was a July
30th.
July 16th? No, July 30th, yeah.
Multi-board meeting.
I think we should also mention, you know, the school committee may be looking for an operational override in the spring for FY 26.
And which the capital projects are
The DPW
Stormwater,
garage.
yeah, the stormwater. Project number 3, I was looking at the priorities. Oh no, 1 was stormwater, 2 was the DPW garage, and tied for 2 was the bleachers. I think 3 was the golf course building,
Yeah.
the golf course building, and I believe the senior center came after that. And then fixing downtown streets was the last one, or of the top ones.
Okay, so I'm gonna delete this paragraph here, what's highlighted. Okay. And then I think,
I think that
you wanna
sentence is still
delete it?
true.
You think this is still true?
I think that sentence is true, yeah.
It's true, but the next piece that there might be other solutions that are less expensive, I don't believe is true anymore. I
Yeah.
think the less expensive choice is no bleachers, which, I mean, you can keep as an option on the table, I suppose, but I don't believe there is a less cheap choice currently for the town that involves keeping bleachers.
And we've seen a partial comparison.
Yeah, Natasha presented a pretty good one tonight. I mean, we might not agree with the assumptions, but even Natasha said that it's the 5% might be high, but then she was just using the current bleachers, not ADA compliant bleachers, which would be more. So we did see a comparison, and she
Yeah.
gave it like the 25-year break even. I believe it was 25 years.
And there's no
break even.
site work involved.
Hey, but like that's, I mean, I did like the same calculation like 2
Yeah.
weeks ago after our meeting, using like different numbers, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
they didn't like talk to a company that did
Okay.
bleaching. And I know you didn't talk to Natasha, but
Those are from actual quotes. Those are estimates. That we use that company. We've been using that Mar scaffolding for the current bleachers. So those are numbers that are not like for the year that was in it, just escalated that on. The things that were not in there were the works that's not done. It hasn't been explored for the code aspects. But the projections, like if you take out on the projection sheet, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but on the other tab, if you take out the 50,000, that FY25 column comes out to the number that Greg provided you all already. That's the same number. So that's that same number he provided you all, which is he got from the estimates that I just put it on a sheet for everyone to kind of see that, because it was kind of like just a long-term. Those are using the numbers that Greg provided you guys already as well, just added in the 50 and then escalated it. But they
I
are
mean, I know,
grounded in
but
estimates.
that's kind of my point, is that it's the numbers for like a different set of rentals that wouldn't be the ones we'd be using, and then it has like assumptions about what it would be going on from there. But I realize I'm in the minority here, so
Yeah, I just didn't want, I just wasn't sure, like it was actually through an estimate that was received from vendors. So I didn't want it to, like that part, I just wanted to clarify. Yeah, with the long term, of course, over 25 years, we wouldn't know. That's where that assumption is built in for 5%, you know, it would be lower, but the ADA numbers, we didn't have those bleachers, so that would be the difference. So anyway, sorry.
No, I think it's good to have the discussion. So I think it is possible that we could try to get additional quotes. So right now, the debt override would be something, it would be too many freaking windows. It'd be around $300K a year. So that would be the principal and the interest.
I almost think we should remove the entire last paragraph and put something
Reword it.
more along the lines of saying that the comparison we've seen is not well flushed out, but it is a minimum number that something along the, it is a poor estimate, but displays what FinCom believes to be a low end of where we would end up, and would end up costing the town equivalent or more.
Like the comparison we have seen leaves out a lot of unknowns. However, we have decided that these unknowns will only escalate the cost. Yeah, something.
Should be compliant, Jillian,
Compliant, not
complaint.
complaint.
No, I'm gonna spell the same word again. This is why I don't like spelling.
I think you had it right the second time. You just, yeah, there you go.
Okay. Comparison between rental of compliant features, bathrooms, okay.
Did not account for all factors. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't really want to go and say additional research could be done, but I want to say something like we could delay the project to research rental options more, but we don't feel that necessarily will have a large difference between a potential override. Is the impression I have from the majority of the committee, is that we could do more diligence, but we don't necessarily think
That due diligence will make a difference in the end. Yeah.
that delta is going to be huge. Like
Mhm.
delaying will, time is more important than perfection is what I'm trying to say. And I need English because it's getting late.
Is it the consensus of the committee that long-term rental of bleachers and bathroom facilities was not financially not effective, but was not cost effective for the town,
Yeah.
Financially prudent.
something like that.
Yeah.
Timing was deemed most critical by the committee as delaying would only increase costs of construction, or is delaying would only increase cost of the project? Yeah, that's good.
Would only increase costs of construction.
Only, yes, so before,
Negative results.
switch year results in increase. Or would only result in increase.
So you can just get rid of results.
Yeah.
Only increase the
Yeah.
costs.
Yeah.
Or only increase cost of construction. It wouldn't be plural.
I want to put this up here.
Costs would not be plural. Increase cost of construction. Maybe you need a the before it. I don't know if it is getting late.
Okay. Although some long-term rental options were,
I mean, my whole point is that long-term rental options were not considered. So I say either don't mention it, don't mention like potential other costs at all, but
although a variation of long-term rental options was considered, or because they looked at them, they just weren't the correct ones.
I mean, I think the point is
Yeah.
that the plan that's in front of us is the plan that we have, and we can like scrap it and like go back to the drawing board. That's probably just going to be like way more expensive if we do that, right?
But they did look at the cost of bleacher rentals, the ones they currently have, whether or not it's viable or allowed or blah blah blah. They did look at it.
Yeah.
It was not deemed the long-term. Although limited long-term rental option scenarios were considered, it was not deemed a solution.
Yeah.
Timing was
Considered.
Timing felt critical. Timing was considered. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Timing was considered.
all right. This is going to be the hardest one, which is why I wanted to do it first, because my brain is going to be potato sauce.
I think you can get rid of option after rental, although limited long-term rental scenarios. Maybe bleacher rental. I mean, it's kind of assumed, but
Well, and porta potty.
yeah, exactly. So
I mean,
Yeah.
that's small, but
I wouldn't add bleachers. And I don't know about that comma.
after, however, a comma,
After
maybe.
considered.
Yeah, that's how.
I don't know. Do we want to? I feel like there needs to be a verb before
Although
solution.
Viable.
It's not
Viable.
deemed a.
Ooh, viable. That's very good.
Yeah, I like that.
Attractive.
Financially
Viable.
fiscal.
Viable.
Financially fiscal. No.
Well, I think viable covers both the financial and also the it's not compliant, right?
Yeah,
You
that's
also need a viable.
Okay. It's not a bathroom, it will be multiple bathrooms.
Then I'd add the S on bathrooms.
Pros plan would update the bleachers and add bathrooms, concession stand, and press box and other facilities.
I think you could do a comma after concession stand. It's a list then, right? Concession stand, press box, and other facilities.
It wouldn't update the bleachers, it'd be new bleachers.
Install.
include.
Include bleachers, bathrooms, a concession stand, and
We say
press
88
box and
compliant
other-
bleachers, bathrooms. Because that's the point, right?
Correct.
I missed what the point was. Sorry.
ADA in front of bleachers.
ADA.
88 compliant bleachers and bathrooms, as well as a concession stand, press box, and other facilities.
That's good.
Well, the press box is ADA compliant. That's what makes it so expensive. The lift,
Oh, is it?
the whole thing, yeah. Yep, it's the lift on the press box.
You did
88
compliant.
complaint.
Gosh, dang it.
And then you also want
Okay.
ADA back in front of bleachers.
Well,
I think if you just put the
other,
I think if you just put the ADA in front of the beginning, it'll just apply to whatever it applies to. I mean, technically the concession stand is ADA,
Yeah,
press boxes and all the other facilities are as well. There's nothing that's not ADA compliant in this project, technically speaking. So it's not, and then I get rid of the other, yeah, down there. Well, and other facilities. Sorry. Control Z.
Yep, I got rid
You
of it.
deleted too much.
I deleted too much, really?
Are there other facilities? I mean, I guess it's site
Well, the other
work.
facilities are the pathways.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is site work, but
Okay.
actually you would say site work then. The facilities, site work doesn't fall under facilities. So other facilities would be replaced with site work.
There shouldn't be an and before a press box. Press box, comma, and other
Okay.
site work.
Ah,
I was about to go, are we doing the Oxford comma discussion here or no?
Okay, and then the second sentence in that paragraph is kind of restates a lot of it.
Yeah, I think you can delete it. The majority of the costs.
this? I thought we wanted to make clear that the costs, well, I can
Yeah,
delete that,
but
right?
yeah, but now it's it has a different role in this
We
new
made-
paragraph than it had originally. I think just cut it.
You could also just say the majority of the costs would go towards the bleachers and bathrooms, and then just leave the rest. If you wanted to still emphasize where the, what's driving it, because you weren't wrong at all about where. I mean, this is titled a bleacher project, but
Yeah,
there's a lot more to it. And if people kind of like when I was looking at the cost for the study for the sewer down below, I was like, that's just a big number for this town unless you're doing X, Y, and Z, and they are doing X, Y, and Z for that very reason. So getting that kind of background makes a big difference.
do we need to mention that we can't just replace the bleachers, that because due to building code, we had to do the bathroom building. I mean, that's what really got the cost up. Loan cannot, yeah, that's good.
If it's covered well enough in the sponsor comments, is it like we already say as outlined in sponsor comments above? I don't know. I feel like the sponsor comments for this one are actually very well put together, especially with giving
They're
the back
very well.
of why. I had no complaints with that descriptions that they provided. So I don't know if we repeat stuff here typically or not, but especially with this one, it would feel like you could end up we'd go back to where we were in the beginning with a lot of extra words.
Okay, so I'm okay with the first two paragraphs. I would like to focus on this third paragraph for a little bit, and then it's really late, so I would like to just breeze through the other ones.
The third
I
one
think
kind of
this is
just
one of the more important.
stops. The third one just kind of stops there. Like there are lots of projects, we list them. Setting priorities is been done or wants to be done, but we don't necessarily say, I mean, it's kind of like a duh why it's not good.
Yeah.
But we don't actually get to a conclusion in that third paragraph in any way. I would say something about
Right.
the FinCom
I kinda wanna combine these two
concerned
paragraphs.
about hitting that 10%, or FinCom is concerned about the total impact these would have on our debt service as a town.
Yes.
I think you get rid of everything after town, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think it paints a pretty clear picture that this is a serious concern.
And I would take that sentence you just wrote and put it at the top of the paragraph.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because I don't think it's very clear why we're mentioning other like capital projects and like why we're recognizing those without that starting sentence. We're concerned about debt. That's why we're talking about other capital projects yet to be funded. And I would say that and something about that we expect will need to be funded in coming years.
That's good. That feels a lot better now.
And the last sentence, the need for bleachers for the alumni field improvements should be weighed with these future projects in mind.
Sorry, one more time.
That I would cut at the bit about setting priorities was discussed at such and such a meeting and just say the FinCom advises the town to weigh a vote in favor of alumni field with these future expected expenses in mind, something like that.
Yeah, I like that. That because these other ones are effectively kind of like this, where your alternatives aren't, oh, you can have like a worse garage or bad stormwater. It's kind of a yes or no option as well. So
So I think there needs to be something about, so we set the obligation here that there's burdens, and then there's a lot of things coming up. There needs to be something in there about how as a town we started to talk about priorities, but I think we need a sentence also saying like the finance committee wants all the townspeople to become involved and voice their opinions as well. So please come to meetings or something. Like become involved in the town. Like this is the sentence that you're trying to make.
Right. Yeah. So for the last the vote for the proposed plan for alumni field should be considered with these future expenses in mind. The town is holding regular meetings to discuss these projects, and voters are invited to attend and are encouraged to attend and make their voices heard.
Like that.
Cut during this process. Let's say regular open meetings are holding regular open meetings. And townspeople are encouraged, or FinCom encourages the townspeople.
Do we want to add anywhere in here what our vote number was? I know it was, but we were kind of expecting almost a 4-3, I feel, before today, and we ended up at a 5-1. I feel like Peter might have actually been a no, so it would have been, I guess, 5-2 in the end of the day.
I think Peter was undecided, I think, still.
Right, and I can't speak for him in any way, but if he had
Right.
gone no, then it would have been 5-2, or 6-1.
Right,
But
right.
do we want to add
So
that
we
here? I
voted
feel
the
like we
committee
wanted.
and
I don't think it's that
I
necessary.
don't think you have to, because I think my concerns were like, especially that paragraph we just wrote that, I mean, I would think deferring to the spring when we have more, we haven't mentioned the override, the operational overrides, but we've mentioned other projects that are gonna hit in the spring, and that's, you know, if you vote on this, you know, we're gonna, at some point, we're gonna have to pick and choose or time things out. I don't think you have to put I don't think you have to put the vote. I'm trying to think what we did, and we had some split votes.
we don't.
before.
No.
Yeah,
We
'cause
voted the committee, so
we
we've
even had
only ever
one-
put them when they're like super close, like
Yeah.
4-3.
Yeah, and as long as both views are here, because this is a very balanced recommendation, right? It is, we've got some concerns here that are, I think, very adequately expressed from my viewpoint. We're concerned about debt. We're concerned about all these other projects and the burden on the taxpayers. Yeah.
Uh,
The lowercase taxpayer probably, right? In the second line of the last paragraph. Sorry.
there you go. All right.
The second
I gotta go
sentence
get
of the
my other.
last. What if in the second sentence of the last paragraph, instead of the finance committee would like to recognize that there are many important potential projects yet to be funded, say, this proposed plan should be considered in respect to many other important potential projects or something like that.
Kind of like it how it is. I understand where you're going with it, but I don't know how much it adds, and it's 10:30.
Yeah. For me,
I think it
I
looks
don't know.
pretty good, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
For
think so
me, I
too.
think it was important to include extras in there. Okay. So we are satisfied with this words. I think the other ones will be very straightforward. All right. Not hearing any further comments.
Sounds good.
So the water from retained earnings, we recommend it. So this is about the equipment, the capital equipment. So this includes talking about how this is important. And then it says that this has a balance of this number estimated before the yearly certification. And it will leave us with a balance of this number after this proposed transfer of the article.
Thank you for that update, Jill.
No problem.
You have one too many spaces in front currently, or two too many spaces. I don't know.
Fix the spaces. All right. Are we satisfied with this words?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yay.
Transfer from the retained earnings. So we also recommended this one. So this is allowing for the town to explore the options for planning, expanding, and improving the treatment capacity. So I changed a couple words from what you sent me, Katie. So the life expectancy is close to end for some plant equipment. passage of this would allow for a study to make such plans. And then this is the balance estimated before the certification, and it would leave this much if it passes. All right. Not hearing any
I'm not sure if I'm
feedback.
development. This is probably too nitpicky. The next steps for, I'd almost like infrastructure maintenance or something. Infrastructure. Just from my perspective of being back in the days, the bad guy developer that developed.
Yeah, I made up the word development, so
Yeah.
that's fine that that's changed.
That works
How about
perfect.
that?
Yeah, that's great. Great, even better.
That first clause in that sentence, could it just be some plant equipment is reaching end of life?
Okay.
And then would we put an and after
Yeah.
before
and-
having? Yeah.
All right.
On oh, sorry.
Number 6. Are we ready to do
Are
number
we
6?
done? The funds, he said
Yeah.
were gonna come out of the operating budget, not the sewer enterprise budget, the 14,000,
Yeah, he said it was coming out of his operating.
the
budget.
DPW operating budget, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not what the sponsor comments say, so I think
Oh.
he might have misspoke.
Okay. Because he said, then you have to wait for a town meeting to spend out of the enterprise budget.
Because
Yeah.
it says no in, sorry.
That's what he said
So
anyway.
this is what it says here, is that it will come out of the sewer enterprise fund. So
Well, it
That-
says has available budget allowance. It doesn't say it's going to come out of that necessarily.
Yeah, that's true. It does look like it was gonna come out of there. That's not what he said tonight, huh? Okay.
We could just cut that sentence if we're not sure.
I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
don't know how much it matters overall because it's small dollars. There's no
Small
appropriation
dollars,
for
yeah, we could
this.
cut this, just cut the sentence.
you could just say
Yeah,
current budget.
vague.
not say
Yeah.
what's on it.
I like-
Yeah, good idea.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so, and then, oh, I forgot about this one.
I would say instead of 4
So-
to create an enterprise fund. Establish
This
the
article
option.
would-
Keep going, right. This article would establish the option, but not an obligation to create an enterprise fund. And then, yeah, you got the rest.
Timing is imperative.
Yeah, that's not a word. There we go.
Would allow flexibility.
Like that adoption sentence is kind of already contained within the first sentence, right?
Yep. This is me like writing it while he was talking because nobody wrote this because this was a brand new article.
I am impressed. You did good.
Yeah.
You did well.
Um,
Period at the end of that, and I think it's good.
The last paragraph, the select board has the authority to currently set rates with stickers or with this potential new program. You should say like currently the select board can raise rates by, oh geez, I'm brain is whatever too.
No, I think he means below where you were. I think the select board currently has the authority to set. Oh, you already have currently down.
Um,
So basically, I wanted to have a paragraph saying like, if you vote no to this article, they still have authority to have a rate hearing and change the rates on the trash program. Like voting no doesn't mean that they can't set rates.
Yeah, that
With
first
whatever
sentence, I'd move somewhere else in that paragraph. You do want to start with what you're saying there, that.
Um,
this
The
section
last
already-
sentence has all those negatives. It's very hard to read.
Yeah.
Not passing this article will not impact.
a yes vote would provide the select board with additional options for
Yeah,
getting the best possible waste management contract. A no vote, the select board, a no vote would a no vote means that the select board would be limited to funding a pay-as-you-go program by raising sticker prices.
What if this article passes? The
The select board
board
would have additional flexibility to not necessarily to negotiate, but yes, to negotiate to implement like the best possible waste disposal contract.
All right, so I'm gonna delete this sentence because it's basically saying the opposite of what I'm saying here. If this article passes, the select board may establish an enterprise program.
We should say what an enterprise fund is. This would allow the select board the option of switching from a sticker program for trash management to a like quarterly bill, like the same way that waste and sewer is treated. If this does not pass, then the select board will only be able will likely increase sticker prices to account for the pay-as-you-go program.
Is it pay as you throw? Sorry.
Oh, is it? Maybe
pay
it
as you
is.
throw. Yeah.
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
I just don't think that the average. I mean, I wouldn't know what like when I first started going to like town meetings, I had no idea what an enterprise fund was.
Does it say in the sponsor comments?
Yep. Let me pull it up. Article 7. Stop sharing. Share the screen. Yeah, pay as you throw. So I think they give a nice summary of what an enterprise fund is.
I mean, a big thing I thought was that it provided the town with tools for oversight and accountability. Because he really mentioned that he talked a lot about bag abuse, whether people aren't putting stickers on their bags, or I'm not quite sure what they were doing, but that there wasn't a lot of accountability in the current program. Oversight.
But that's more about what his task force will recommend in the end,
Yeah,
not necessarily what this is about inherently. They just want the ability to say, we'd like to do this under or through a new enterprise fund, and without having this piece of framework first, they can't do the second piece. So he did mention that a lot, but that was more of, I think, I would say background info, but it's not background, it's future ground. Info as to why they're, yeah, I don't know. It's now 10:48. So.
Okay, I'm made less words and hopefully you like them.
I was gonna say, why don't we go simpler, because this is really just a procedural almost option for having just more pathways on the board versus less pathways.
Yep, that's my opinion.
Looks good.
Very acceptable on this one. All right. Our last one is about the liquor license on Walnut Street for the Cornage store.
just has a double word allow authorize, would authorize maybe.
And it got changed from Board of Selectmen to Select Board recently, right? So
Right, select board, yeah.
To be consumed, maybe, or to be drunk.
I copied and
if
pasted
I-
the old one with clearly not the right edits because I missed the select board piece, but I believe drunk off is also the legal how it was
Oh, okay.
it was put in that way. I also thought it was weird as well, but
I was confused.
everywhere I looked when I was doing
Do not be
Mm.
drunk on premises.
It's like too many play on words there.
yeah, exactly. But apparently
Uh.
that's just how it's phrased. I don't know. I agree with you. It felt weird.
To be consumed, right? Can be consumed.
Yeah, the sponsor comments say not to be drunk on premise. So this is the same.
All
as
right.
the- 49 Walnut Street. Yep. Okay. We're happy with that one. All right. I'm not hearing anyone else. We're all falling asleep. Great. So, yeah, so I would motion that we table the minutes and do those next time.
Seconded.
Sounds good.
And our updates and the like. So,
Can I motion to adjourn
I-
at 10:51 p.m., please?
yeah, okay, so 1 second. So our next meeting, so I'm gonna propose we cancel the 23rd meeting and instead just have the meeting on the 30th, which would be our public hearing and also the, our normal meeting. So I'll post it for both of them. And we'll not have a meeting on the 23rd. Okay?
I'm really sorry, everyone. Are we required to submit comments to the Mass Housing Partnership by the 20th for the 40B thing, or do we not have to do that?
We do not have to do that. That is a great thing to bring up. So I did send you a lot of emails about that. I looked at all the other towns in the area that were linked, and none of them, the finance committee voted, like, made any official comments. It was the select board, the planning boards, and the water and sewer, like the DPW. So I personally, as one member of the committee, do not think we need to do those comments, especially since it's 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And you know, that is my personal opinion, but I did send you that link. So if you feel as a citizen you would like to put in a note, you can do that, because that's what the link is for. But if you have opinions otherwise, let me know.
You know, I don't have a burning desire. I don't know if we were required to do it. So
We are not required to do it. So so I can let Bill know that we ran out of time because we had to do these STM comments. But we will, if we feel so impassioned to do so, we'll make comments as individuals.
I won't be here on September 30th, so we need someone else to take notes on the 30th.
Okay.
I can take notes, Linda.
Thank you.
Mm.
I will
Jill,
be
I
in
don't know if you need-
Spain,
Ooh, have fun.
biking in Spain and Portugal. Yeah, I can't wait.
Good
That's
reason
awesome.
to miss.
Yeah.
I don't know if you need a second for your proposal for the
Yes, for
cancel
the
it the next
adjournment, I
meeting.
would need a second.
Okay, I second it.
Who first?
All right,
Who did the first?
Jillian.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Yep, so at 10:54 p.m.
Oh, yikes.
All right.
Whoa, record.
Old timer.
I know, but we did it. We made all the comments. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for your
Job.
hard work.
Thank you so much.
Everyone will make it into the printed warrant, so I will send that off as soon as this meeting ends. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second to adjourn. I will take a roll call vote. Our next meeting will be on September 30th. Nathan,
Yes.
Mikhail,
yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
I'm also a yes, so we are adjourned. Thank you so much for staying extra long.
Night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a good
Hey,
night.
everyone.
I